Okay, now we're cooking. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Greetings. Hag Pesach Sameach. And welcome. So we got a few folks here. This is good. Maybe we'll get some more that show up. I know some people are doing second Seder. Others are just away. Others are doing Havdalah. Everybody's got something going on right now. So we may see more folks pop in, but that's okay. We're recording this so we can post it in the group because I've had several people actually message me today asking if these would be recorded because they can't make it tonight or some other night. And I said yes. Unless, of course, it just comes out horrible, then I'll delete everything. I'm just kidding. Okay, so welcome. So tonight what we're going to do is it's the first night of the Omer count of the 7 weeks, and the first one of these groups, these discussions, what we're going to do on each Saturday night for the next 7 Saturday nights in a row, B'ezrat Hashem, Lord willing. And what we want to do is, and again, some of you folks I know better than others. Some of you have been, involved with these things or with discussions here in these groups for a while. Others maybe new. And people listening or viewing the video, of course, same thing. So I'm going to cover some basic stuff tonight. It'll be quite an assortment, quite a potpourri, if that's the right word, of stuff tonight, including some background stuff that's important to lay down first, and then spend a little bit of time on the midot, the midah for the week, the sephirah for the week, which is loving kindness, CHESED, for the first week. As some of you probably know, we do a different one each week. There are 7 of these attributes that we deal with regularly in our lives. So we look at each one each week, and we also look at each one within each one. So it's the concept here of 7 weeks and then 7 days within each week. And each of the days also is attributed to one of these. So you have one within the other and another within the other, and you end up with 49 at the end of the day, at the end of the Omer count. So what I'm going to do tonight is an assortment of short videos. I've spent a good part of the week perusing the internet, looking at dozens of articles and videos to figure out what ones aren't too long and are fun and interesting and bring some unique ideas. Again, short ones. I didn't want to, especially on the first night, bog everything down with like an hour-long discussion on something. We might have 1 or 2 longer videos in the weeks ahead that are pertinent to something very interesting. So that's the plan. Interaction is always welcome and desired. We had a room recently that was dedicated to that. We talked about dreams and things like this, and we had a lot of people take the mic and share stories, and it was just great to go back and forth instead of just me talking all night, which is pretty boring. So if you have, I get a resounding yes to that from my wife that I'm boring. So if you do, I think there's the ability to raise your hand option on this software. If not, just butt in at a good time if it's something that you wanted to ask or say, or you can type it in the chat box, and I'll try to keep an eye out for that. If I don't see it, because sometimes I just space out and don't look down there, just let me know, or maybe Elisheva can let me know. All right, so I have a slideshow to start with. There we go, short one. I put a few slides together, and hold on one second, folks. Okay, I just had to check something, sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna go pull up my slideshow here on the screen, which I think I actually have queued up. Ooh, look at that, yep, I have it. All right, so now I gotta get back to you guys. And share sound. Ta-da. How's that look? You see it? All right. Is that on screen now? Shalom and welcome. Yes. Oh, cool. All right. Good. All right. Yeah. The big welcome screen. I spent a lot of time on this slide. Um, I know. Hey, this is good for me. I color coordinated the gold letters and stuff. This is pretty good for me. So anyhow, welcome to tonight. We are going to talk about some background stuff. I'm trying to find stuff that's a combination of, well, yeah, we gotta talk about this in case some people don't know about it, and also things that are a little bit more exciting, engaging, or just plain weird, that will help. That there's so many aspects to Torah. No matter what we talk about, it's always fun to bring in some engaging and different stuff. So all right, let's see how good I do with the page down feature here. Oh, I got to go onto the screen here. Hold on, and oh, there we go. Okay. Uh, a good what is it? A good teacher starts with telling a joke or something to break the ice. I'm not that great at that, so I just have one liner used, and we have a problem. And the idea here, and most of my slides don't have. I try not to put too much text usually on slides. I thought it was just important, also for myself. So people can look at this later. They can just look at the slideshow, which will also be available separately. Just want to make sure I got all my connections going here. Chat and okay, good. Make sure my mic's working. So the issue here, what is the Omer count about? I'll start with that and then go back. Is the Omer count is a way of helping us make a better connection to God and to others by looking at parts of who we are, our personality, and things of that, not just personality, but who we really are, our nature, and looking at those from a Torah perspective and trying to improve them, trying to make repair, tikkun, okay? And one of the very basic problems that's addressed in a lot of Torah literature is, God's ways are not our ways. God is before any existence. How do we connect with God? Because there was no really direct way to connect with God. Because to connect with something, as it says on the slide, you need to have some idea of what that thing is based on some type of parameters, some type of boundaries. And God has no boundaries. So we're instantly faced with this dilemma of how can we even make a connection. And that's one of the interesting things that's presented. It's in the Zohar, actually, that talks about this idea that there's a transcendent God that we really cannot relate to. We really can't know anything, really intricate about. And yet there's the concept of an immanent God, a God that is on the pages of the Bible, that interacts with people. It says we are to pray to him. It says, we're to do his commandments, and there's things that associate with that. So it's like, how can that be? And the Zohar presents that as the ultimate goal or question in life, is like to figure out how those two things are the same, how you can have this unknowable God and a knowable God that are the same God. And that's the big mystery in this life, which we will get the answer to one day, not in this life, in the future. But for now, God wants us to work on that. It's a concept of Esther Panim, God hiding his face, and all kinds of things related to this, that he plays a divine game of hide and seek with us to try to figure him out and find out these things and become more like him. When we talk about improving our souls and making repairs to our nature and all of these things, we're talking about trying to conform to what's called the image of God, which goes back to Genesis. Okay, so let's take a look at this concept of connecting to God in terms of some things that we find in the Torah. Because this is all foundational for the Omer count. So we're looking at some basic foundational stuff here. Boom. All right. First, we're going to go to the caravan here. And there's an idea here, of course, that relates to the Omer count, that we're counting days and thinking about, oh yeah, they went from Egypt to Israel and what that must have been like and all. And so we can think about that in a historical, physical sense, which is good. There's also a deeper mystical sense to these things, and that it's based on the idea that throughout the year, every year, there's different times of the year, different holy days, different periods of time that are on the calendar, on God's calendar of things, the different moedim, appointment times, and all these different things are more than just like historical connections. There's a deeper aspect where we connect through things, through time, through the spiritual worlds back to God. So they are, in a sense, both days of observance, but also like channels to make connection, to make spiritual connection. And the whole idea here is to bring more of what is God's light, or the God's hidden light, into our lives, into the world. Eventually, I got to make a little adjustment here to something. I have a screen being blocked by something here. There we go. Okay, so you have the idea of this Or Haganuz, which is the hidden light, and then the glimpses we can get of this hidden light through these different things that occur during the world, different ways God gives us to do this, which we'll talk about in a second, is an interesting term called Or HaYechida, which is the Yechida part of the name in there, if you can see that. Hold on a second, I keep misplacing some things here. The Yechida is considered like this highest level of the soul. That's actually the kind of like, you could say, making the connection to God very directly, like very unified. And what the sages teach is when the Hebrews, the Israelites, the Jews, however you want to refer to them, left Egypt to go to Israel, they were going from Egypt, which is called Mitzrayim, which is that means a place of restraint or confinement. They weren't able to serve God. They weren't able to do what their purpose was while they were enslaved in Egypt. And then they were on their way to Sinai to receive the Torah, and the Torah is freedom. So there's this idea of leaving Egypt, and then this path of this travel that they took from one point to the other. And there's a number of steps. They actually took 42 steps along the way, which, as we'll talk about at some point, does correlate to the 49 days of the Omer. And these steps were all things that something happened all along on these paths. Sometimes they were there for a few days, sometimes weeks or months or even longer. It almost seems random, but there's always a purpose to these things. So there's this whole idea that we're going from Passover to Shavuot, from leaving Egypt to Mount Sinai, is going from this state where you aren't in your best shape to serve God, and you get cleaned up along the way. I posted something during the week about it's a time of detoxification. We usually think of that in terms of like alcohol or drugs, but it's like spiritual detoxification of making these things better within us, within our soul, so that when we get to the end, we are in much better shape to have this ultimate connection that ties back to the time at Mount Sinai at Shavuot. And, you don't get it all done in 1 year. You don't become like perfect and all. But the more you focus on this and other things, and each year and through the year, you just continually draw closer and closer to God. So let's see, page it down. All right, so here's an interesting bit of information. There's much in the Bible. In fact, you can almost say the entire point of the Bible is about us trying to connect or reconnect. Ganidan, that was messed up by people at that time, Adam and Chava, and their sin has had long-term ramifications, and sins since then have done the same. But much of the Bible is really all the Bible is about us connecting back to God. And what's interesting is how many terms, how many words in the text that you see in the Torah and the Tanakh, through the whole Bible, that have a root that is associated with the idea of connection. You take simple words that we use all the time, a mitzvah, you say, oh, it's a good deed, but it comes from a word meaning connection. Tefillah, prayer, same deal. and then things that you see in the Torah that they had to do, and you say, well, what's going on with the incense? What's going on with the offering? Same thing there. Those words all have literal, meaning. The root of the words has to do with connecting. Even the word we see throughout the Torah, throughout the Tanakh, da'at, which is generally translated as knowing or knowledge, it also means connection. It means knowing knowledge in terms of making a connection. So you see, and that's at every level. You see that right from the beginning of the Genesis, where it says physically Adam knew his wife. It means that they had relations, physical relations. And you see that all the way through to things like Daniel chapter 12 that says at the end of days, knowledge, da'at, will increase, which is a spiritual connectivity with God. There'll be a greater level of connectivity because we read elsewhere that there's going to be people with getting prophecy and dreams and all these things that are going to be happening at that point in time. So you have that idea of da'at having to do with connection. I posted that directly out of the Chabad knowledge base little dictionary there, so you can see it. And then even the term avodah, worship, which is really means it's more work related. Avodah is really like service. And there's a quote here from a book that actually Elisheva used this book a lot in her last study she did, and we'll be using it more in the future. It's a really good text called Yedid Nefesh. And there's some interesting terms that you might not be familiar with, so I kind of define them there. But he says the purpose of avodah is to bring about the connection or the coupling between what's the terms here are used for the divine groom and bride. And that's within each person individually and then collectively amongst the people of God and, eventually in some way the world in general. Let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to stop after the slide presentation. So if you have pencil and paper with you and you're jotting little notes, that's perfect. So we can stop and take a few questions and stuff at the end of this little segment. Okay, page down. Another term that has to do with connecting to God, and this is one we used a lot in our study at Sukkot. We did the Oshpezin movie, and we're going to do that on week 7. We're going to show that movie. Very much relates to 7 days of Sukkot, relate directly to the 7 weeks of Shavuot, of the Omer count. And teshuvah is a word that's sometimes often translated as repentance, and it can kind of sort of mean that, and it is used that way a lot. But there's an interesting quote here, Rabbi Sachs, and I only put part of the quote. He actually says there's another word for repentance. Teshuvah really means a return to yourself. Now that sounds kind of odd if you don't have the context to it, but the self here is the true self, and the true self is that which is made in the image of God. Back in Genesis chapter 2, is it? I forget. But so this image of God, whatever that is for the time being, is what we seek to go back to return to. So there's a concept here of a path, of a way to get back to that. And this concept of this path that's in whatever's involved with this path to get back to this true self is what we find with the Omer count specifically, and also other things that are given to us in Torah to do. All right, let's keep going. A couple more. This is only 10 slides in all, and we'll pause. Page down. Okay, so one of the concepts, if you're not familiar with it, it's a good time to jump in here, and I'll explain these images in a minute. So you have this idea about, here we are, and then this is God, and, well, if we think in a very literal sense in terms of like time and space, which is what we have to deal with, these things aren't really time and space related, but it's how we think. So what's going on here with us here and God above, so to speak. And the idea is an idea here that within what we call existence, that there are these different levels of existence that are in place. And I hate to use this term, so to keep this very loose, between us and God. Obviously God is not bound by any time or space or in any one location, but it's how we think, So there are these levels, or what are called worlds in Kabbalistic teachings. And very simply, if we look to the left with the little colorful one there, you'll see these 4 names, these 4 Hebrew words. And I just noticed that I don't have my chat box open, so I need that open in case people are posting stuff. Um, okay, good. Didn't want to miss anything. And so this concept of these worlds of existence, and if we start from the bottom up, it might be easier. So um, this idea that we live in this on this planet in this physical world, but that lowest world of existence is far more than just this planet and this physical world. It includes everything that we can relate to with our senses. So it's not only the mineral, vegetable, animal kingdoms of this world, but it's everything. It's the stars, the planets, and everything else that we would consider physical, that we can see, smell, touch, etc., that is within the bounds of space and time. So everything that's within all of that is this level of physical of asiya, which is the world of action or making, is what the term relates to. And beyond this world of asiya, and I say beyond because these things all exist simultaneously. So it's not like literally one's like above the other in terms of space, as I said, but you have this a spiritual world. We can for now call it like a lower spiritual world, which is considered like the angelic world. And angels are messengers, so they are functioning angels between this lower world of asiya through this world called Yetzirah, which means formation. And they are going back and forth. So going back and forth to what is the question? And that brings us to the higher world above that, Beriah, which is called the world of creation. And everything below Beriah is part of creation, what we already discussed. So Beriah is essentially the highest level of creation. And this is a very conceptual world. And it's considered to be like the heavenly realm. Again, not heavens in terms of clouds and stars. That's in the lowest realm. But this is the realm of what we would call like the throne room of God, the heavenly temple, things of that nature. The concept of spiritual powers or forces that kind of oversee everything. So those three that are in the blue there together are all part of what we call creation, which is within existence. But then there's a higher world called Atzilut, which means nearness, and that's nearer to God than the others. And this is a world that we could say precedes creation, but is still part of existence. So what does that mean? Well, the simplest example is Genesis 1:1, where we see God Elohim. It says, created heavens and earth. Okay, so created heavens and earth, that's from Beriah forward. But before that, there was something in existence. There's something we can relate to in our minds called Elohim, which is not the complete concept of God, so to speak, but a concept of God that is involved with that creative process. But it's something before creation, so it's part of existence. So one of the clearest examples for us is in the Torah, which is the picture to the top right, which is an old sketch of sketching, or what do you call it? Yeah, sketch, I guess, of Jacob's dream in Genesis. And Jacob dreamed of the four worlds. He dreamt of he's on the ground, he's within this world, and we call it the physical world, but it obviously has a spiritual connection, or it wouldn't exist. So there is the concept of God and spirituality and all of that does exist, of course, in our world. There he is, and you see the angels on the ladder. Remember, they go back and forth in his dream, and they go up into the heavenly realm. Okay, and then beyond the heavenly realm is a concept, of course, of God who created all these things. So you essentially see the four concepts of the four worlds in Jacob's dream. These four worlds are expressed in other ways, which we'll talk about briefly, because they're important because they relate to the Omer count and everything else we're doing. Below that, there's a lovely photo of a T-shirt and a guy holding a red pill. And if you don't know already, yeah, that's me and my T-shirt. So, and you see these four worlds in a kind of unique way there. The bottom one, that's actually like a little image of a house. So it's like our home is down here in the world. And then over to the left, if you go left, there's a heart representing like emotion and feeling. And then to the right, you see a book, an eye for learning, to learn. And that's the next level up of intellect and all of that. And then above everything else, right, above that word shalom with the unusual looking letter shin, there's the concept of a unified state above that represented by the sun and the moon, which is the bride and the groom, by the way. And that represents the world of Atzilut. So that's, you can't see it behind my hand there, but it says 4 worlds of peace, actually 4 worlds of shalom, which are the 4 worlds of existence, because we exist in all of these worlds at the same time. And we can talk about that more at the end of the night or some other time. I want to keep moving forward here. Another diagram, another way of looking at this is sometimes represented with the 4-letter name of God, the Yod and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, as you see them vertically over the image of a man. So these are just different ways that this concept of these 4 levels or 4 worlds of existence are displayed and thought of in Torah, in Judaism. Couple more slides and then we'll pause for a quick break and some questions and stuff. Okay, yeah, the slides get weirder and weirder, and like I said, this might be a little unusual for some folks, so we'll have time throughout and also at the end to talk more in detail, or also I will post this in the group. So you have this idea, as I mentioned, that these 4 levels or 4 worlds of existence, which are on the far left there in the white letters, and they relate also to these what we call levels of the soul, okay? And the levels of the soul, again, starting from the bottom, if you will, or the most common one, the nefesh. Everything has a nefesh. It's the basic soul, and this is kind of what associated with the life force that keeps us going. And we talked about this in our other groups. There's a higher level, if you will, of the soul called ruach, which is kind of like the realm in between again, sort of like the angels going up and down. This is our own realm of up and down in terms of pondering and thinking about spiritual things that some people do, hopefully. A lot of humanity doesn't care about spiritual things. I know, just think about people in your workplace. How many of them do you think really ponder God and Torah and spiritual stuff throughout the day? There's a lot of people out here that don't give it any thought. But people that do, no matter what it is, when they start thinking about these things, pondering these things, this is that level of ruach. And it's also associated, as we said earlier in the last slide, with the level of emotion. So you're kind of looking almost like a grid here. And I have a grid on the website with a lot more than this. It shows how these things are at different levels and kind of interconnect like that. And then when people do make a spiritual connection, a closer one, and it doesn't have to be, exactly one particular religious tradition. Obviously, Torah is the right path, but people connect to God in many ways, in many places around the world, many cultures. If it's sincere, God honors that to that degree. Everyone's held up to the level of accountability of what they know, what they've learned. This level of the soul that is making more of a connection with God is the neshama, and it's also connected with the level of intellect. So if you look on the right side, we see body, emotion, and mind. This actually correlates to Deuteronomy 6:5, right after the Shema, the beginning of the Vehafta prayer. And you will love the Lord your God with, it's in a different order, but it's the same 3 things. And it's with your mind, your heart, and your strength, which is your heart, mind, and strength, I forget. So it's the same 3 things. You will love the Lord your God with your physical abilities and money and, time, and your emotion and your mind. So that's all grounded. Those 3, which are the 3, again, within creation itself, are associated with that. And those are the 3 levels of the soul that most people, if they're fortunate, end up, dealing with and relating to, etc. And that's great. There are some people who either they're put here by God for this reason, or they somehow attain it at a higher level that's even beyond that. And generally, we call people like that as tzaddikim. A tzaddik is a really holy, righteous person that's kind of lives at a whole different level than most of us regular folks. And that's at the higher level. It's chaya, which is life, which is the 4th level of the soul. And again, psychologically, like subconscious, but also like almost like a collective conscious too, because people like that, they can look at you and tell you about your life kind of thing. And it's like, some of them can. It's just incredibly, people are connected at a whole other level. Above all these 4 levels of existence, there is something, I guess you could call pre-existence, something that comes before that. Again, this is that level of Yechida I mentioned earlier with the Or HaYechida, couple slides back, the idea that this light of the highest level that actually connects to God, the essence of everything below it. And you have this idea here that there are these emanations of God that we can understand, that the sages have figured out, if you will, obviously given indirectly or directly by way of the Torah, but these emanations of God, of which there are 10, and this is how we can understand and relate to God directly and through the scriptures and everything else. And because we're made in the image of God, these emanations exist within us too. We reflect that. And these are the things that we work on to become more like God. It's kind of a simple way to look at it, but it's a good foundation to start with. So we have this emanations within us called Sephirot, okay? And these Sephirot are reflections of how we relate to God, how God expresses himself through existence, through creation. Again, through the pages of the Torah, as well as through our own personal experiences. And what's interesting with the word Sephirah, if you know, like a Sefer is a book. So the whole idea here is the idea of making a connection, communicating. We go back to that idea of connection. And it's also interesting in that it also relates to the word for sapphire, Saphir. And you'll hear, I think one of the songs Elisheva played earlier, and you'll hear in one of the videos, one or two of the videos too, this concept of the sapphire, like a shiny, like a bright stone that through the process of doing the Omer count and other things that we do, prayer and good works and all of that, we are like shining or polishing that sapphire, that sapphire stone. We're polishing it. We're removing the impurities and making it brighter and brighter. And this is the idea of, again, becoming more like God, more in the image of God. So that concept of the stone being polished and brightened by the good things that we do, the correct things that we do, relates to the word Sephirah, which, as it says at the bottom on the right, is the purpose of it is to give light, to bring this light into our lives and into the world. So you have a very nice little diagram here. I'm going to go a couple more slides to just explain this a little bit further. And then I'm going to take a short break and some questions and then go on to some interesting videos. Again, we're going to do short videos tonight and talk in between them. Okay, page down. Next one. Okay, don't let the diagrams frighten you if you haven't seen these before. Okay. So we saw that these four levels of existence, these four worlds that we talked about, our physical world down here, the angelic world, the heavenlies, like the throne room of God, and then something before all of that, before creation. So you had those four worlds we just talked about. And within, and we saw this idea briefly that there are these emanations of God called Sephirot. So the idea here simply is that these 10 emanations of God, these 10 Sephirot, they are like the foundational structure, if you will, for the blueprint, whatever you want to call it, for each of these four worlds. Only, of course, they're there in each of the worlds, but they obviously function very differently, and they relate to different things. But there is some, because the worlds are very different, how things function and work in this world is nothing compared to the angelic world, but the angelic world is nothing compared to the world above that. And we're going to look at a video in a couple of weeks that by Rabbi Label Wolf that talks about this in very great detail. So you have this idea of these 10 emanations that come down and into existence at each world. And during the Omer count, we focus on the bottom 7. The top 3 are considered, they call mohin, which is like intellect or brains. And they're kind of overarching concepts that we don't really interact with closely, so to speak, in our day-to-day work. But they are kind of like the mothers, if you will, above. That's one of their nicknames, if you will. Although Bina is mostly associated with mother, but everything kind of comes through Bina down. So they're all called mothers in that they're like birth the others. So we're dealing mostly with the 7 below. And we're going to talk about how those break down very briefly too. Let me make sure to check I'm in trouble with my, here we go, my chat box here. Okay, I didn't miss anything good. So the lower seven, as it says in the text, they're accessible to us. The word that they're specifically, as I said, the top three are called mochin, M-O-C-H-I-N. The seven below are called midot. Now, midot is the concept of a measure, okay, is what it means. And the idea of measurement, of course, means, you're using some kind of criteria to for something to change, hopefully, for the better. And that's the idea, of course, within these as it relates to the Omer count, is these things are things that we come to understand and then learn how to understand how to improve them in our lives too. So when we do the Omer count, this is interesting because we actually start from the top down. Normally, when we think of connecting back to God, we start with Malkut and work up. But with the Omer count, and we'll get into this not today, but down the road, I have a rough outline for the next 7 weeks. It does come from, if you will, God's perspective down to us. So we're going to start at CHESED, which is over there in the right. And oh yeah, my little diagram there is color coded for a reason. We can talk about that later too. And we end up going through all seven, and then the seventh one, Malkut, is where we end. So we're going from number 4 to number 10 on this diagram, because the first 3, as I said, are just not what we directly relate to. Another interesting thing here, and I mentioned this a while ago tonight when I said something about how Shavuot and the Omer count connects over to Sukkot in the fall. And because here we have 7 weeks, and in the fall we have 7 days, but they correspond exactly. And at Sukkot, we learn about these same things through studying aspects of the lives of these 7 Ushpizin, which is guests, Guests. And they are 7 patriarchs, and they start with Abraham, and then Isaac and Jacob, and then they go down to Moses, Aaron, and then Joseph. It's not chronological. There's reasons that these associate, and then ends with David. So you go through those 7 and what they represent in the fall at Sukkot, 1 each day. And when it says you invite them into your tent, into your sukkah, it's not some spooky mystical thing that would be against Torah. It's we're inviting them in the sense that we're seeking to make this kind of a connection with who they are and what they teach us through their characteristics and behaviors. So just want to make sure nobody gets the wrong impression there. All right. So let's move on with, I think 1 or 2. I don't know what slide we're on, but we're running out of slides. So as I said, the concept here with the Omer count is we're going to go through these weeks, and there are 7 weeks. And as I mentioned earlier, that the 7 weeks, 49 days, correlate back to the 42 steps in the journey from Egypt to Israel. There's a reason that's 42. There is a 49 in there once they get into the land, and we'll talk about that at a later date. In terms of the 7 that we do work on, there's also a division, as you remember, if you saw in the last diagram. I could just go back to that really quickly. You notice the color coding from purple for those 6, and then red below. There's a concept here of the bride and groom, which at Sukkot is very evident, because at Sukkot you hold the 6 parts of the lulav, because you have the lulav in the middle and the hadasim on the right, and the other one on the middle on the left. And then, so the 6 parts, and you hold them, which is the groom part, and you bring it together with the etrog, which is the bride part, and symbolic of this unification of the bride and the groom, which, if you remember on the slide before, is what worship, avodah, is about. It's about bringing these things together. So there is a division in terms of how we understand things between the 6 and the 1 below. So there's a concept of the masculine and feminine, and that's not a boy-girl thing or masculine and feminine in the usual sense, obviously, because King David is anything but feminine, and you saw he was associated with the food. So I created this little diagram called Fix the 6. So basically what we're talking about here is the first 6 weeks, there are very specific aspects to these 6 sephirot. in terms of what we learn about them and improving. And it's also true with the seventh, although the seventh has very much the concept of, I guess you could say, taking the six and putting them into regular practice. Day to day. One of the things we're going to talk about in week 2, we're going to spend a lot of time with Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because that's a complete mirror image of what we're doing here, remarkably. Although he never studied any of this, it's one of those incredible coincidences of life. And he breaks his 7 habits down the same way. There's 6 that you learn about, and then there's a 7th one. He calls it sharpening the saw, where you put these things into practice and learn from them down in this world, so to speak. So when you think of Malkut, that the lowest one means kingdom, associated with that lowest world of Asiya we talked about earlier, our physical world we live in. We learn these things, we understand these things, and putting them into practice. So you have this idea of the 6, and then the 7th one. Chesed is generally called loving kindness. I have a chat box in the way here. So I have mercy expansion. Loving kindness might be a little more accurate than mercy, although both are used. It's also the idea of proactiveness and expansion, as we'll talk about. And then opposite that is Geburah, which is restriction and judgment. And then the product of the confluence, if you will, of the 2 gives you the balance between the 2, which is beauty. Tiferet means beauty, but in the sense of balance. And then Netzah, which is, again, proactive. And we'll talk about why that is. Some of these are on what's called the right side. If you saw the diagram before, some on the left and some in the middle. So the right side is more proactive. The left side ones are more reactive and restrictive. Hod is on the left, concept there of measurement and restriction. And then Yesod, connectivity. So when we talk about the patriarchs, Abraham is associated with loving kindness and an expansion, being open. He, no restriction. God told him to go, he goes. In fact, no restriction to a fault, because he didn't have the sense of restriction to understand things going on in his own family dynamics that weren't working right. And God had to send Sarah to correct that situation, if you recall. Geburah associated with Isaac, very strict judgment. He never left the land of Israel. He had arranged marriage, things of this nature. Jacob, the balance between the 2. And then you have Netzah and Hod associated with Moses and Aaron. And again, this is a quick overview, folks. So if you're getting lost, just hang in there. We can talk about it more later. And I'll provide more information online too. Netzah being, again, proactive. Moses on that side. His corresponding brother, Aaron, on the left. Aaron was known as a peacemaker. He'd hear everyone out and make, measure things and make a good decision and bring peace to the people. And Joseph is associated with Yesod, connectivity. He made the big connection between his brothers and their destiny, between the world of Israel and the world that's not Israel, through Egypt and Pharaoh. So he's that concept of connectivity and making things go forward. What do we got? One more slide? Yeah. So we have those 6, as I said, that are kind of a, package, if you will. And then the Malkut, the 7th one. And then the last one, yes, the last slide. These 6 now, as we'll talk about at some point, are actually broken down into 2 groups of 3. And just to explain this diagram, and I put the patriarch names in red there so you could, associate them again. But the first set of 3, which are Chesed, Geburah, and Tiferet, when you take the first letters, you get an acronym, Hagat. So that's what that Hagat means. It's just the first letters of the words. And then the lower 3, Netzah, Hod, and Yesod, Nehi, the acronym. And these differ in that, and if you stop and think just very visually here of above and below, so you have the idea here that the first 3 are very much personal attributes that you're working on without really involving other people. So this is you fixing things at one level within you, based on that which is above, the wisdom and understanding and Keter crown. So these are like internal fixes based on those ideas. And then when you get to the next set of 3, you're taking those same things, and now you're going to look a little bit more in terms of those same things as they relate to your fellow human beings and interrelationships. Okay. Again, remarkably, when you look at the Stephen Covey material, he talks about where we start at a point of dependence, and then we learn independence through the first 3, and then we learn interdependence with other people through the next 3. So he says the same thing the rabbis do about these 2 sets of 3. Because the sages and rabbis say the same thing, that you can look this up in multiple articles. The first 3 are more internal to you and just you and your relationship with God, and the next 3 are to your fellow man. And what's interesting, too, is there's rabbinic literature that says something that also is repeated by Covey's material, and that is, believe it or not, the bottom 3, the lower 3, are in a sense more significant and more important. How we treat each other, how we relate to each other, is extremely important in the eyes of God, even more so than how we treat God. It's an interesting concept some people might have trouble with, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to affect, like Micah chapter 6 verse 8. It's the only place in the Bible where the question is actually asked, what does God want from us? The only place where the question is directly asked is Micah 6:8. And basically he says, love mercy, exercise proper judgment, do it in humbly in faith. So there you have that whole idea of a right, left, and center, and then walk, humbly with God. So treat your fellow man right and walk with God properly. So, all right. So that's the slideshow. Thank you for putting up with it. It's some basic concepts that are underlie what we're going to be talking about tonight and all through the weeks. I won't be just yakking like this all night. I have, like I said, several short videos which are interesting, a couple other little things that we can stop in between. And flat tire. Well, that's no good. Yeah, Moshe, we will have this stuff, that we'll have this audio and video posted to watch and other information in the group, so you won't miss a thing. I am recording all these things, so don't worry. And you can post questions there during the week anytime, which of course is a lot easier to reply to and provide links to good articles and other things that may relate. So I will be spending a lot of time every day for the next 49 days on this. So this is something I've looked forward to for a long time. And interestingly, I have a lot of time right now to do this. So strange how Hashem provides, but it's all good. So you won't miss anything, except the ability to ask questions live right now, which I want to thank you, Valerie. Some of them you might recognize. I do reuse things because it keeps coming back. So I'll be posting the slideshow independently of the video here. They'll both be online. So you have everyone will have everything. So I want to pause for a second here. If anyone has any comments or questions on some of these ideas, these concepts that we talked about so far, please go ahead and either type them if you want, or take the mic if you will. Yep. Well, I'm going by Eastern time on the Omer count, which we will. Yes, I've got that figured in. We will do that. There are certain things about the Omer count that you're supposed to do it on time, and if you don't, then there's some. You can continue the next day, but if you forget a whole day, then you only count. You don't do the prayer and all that. We have actually a couple videos explaining some of this stuff too. So I found some very good videos. Like I said, I weeded through dozens of videos to find some that I thought would be pretty good for the first night. So we'll be playing those shortly. Any other comments or questions on these worlds of existence or these 10 emanations that come through them? So you figure here you've got these 10 emanations in each of the 4 worlds. That's a lot of variables, if you will, and they're all within us. And if you take the idea of, each of them having some aspect of the others within it. So like when we do the Omer count, right, we start tonight with the Chesed of Chesed. Tomorrow we will be doing Gevurah, judgment within Chesed. The third night we do Tiferet, balance, beauty within Chesed. So we do all 7 within Chesed. Next week we do all 7 within Gevurah. So we get 49. So now if you were to do that with all 10, of course you would end up 10 times 10. You'd end up 100. So if you got 100 possibilities here, going through, all 10 through all 4 worlds. I did the math. It's 10 to the 40th power of possibilities. So each person, you have I joked around. I said, if someone says you're 1 in a million, tell them, no, they're way off. You're 1 out of 10 to the 40th power, which is a 1 with 40 zeros after it. That's the number of combinations there are. It's crazy. I like doing silly stuff like that. But so yeah, the amount of that's one of the most interesting things about Torah is that the pattern and the path, if you will, in one sense, is the same for every human being. We're all made in this image of God. There's one God. We all have to go back to that God, but each person has absolutely their own uniqueness and their own path back. The path, you have the map, but how you negotiate the map is based on who you are, your circumstances, and a bunch of other things. But we're all following the same general concepts and map, which is absolutely, fantastic. So we're counting the Omer. It's dark here. So I'm already here on the East Coast. I don't know where everyone else is. You could be from all around the world with this, which is wonderful. But we count the Omer in a few minutes. So questions, comments on these slides or any of the concepts? If you don't have them right now, please bring them up later or jot them on a piece of paper and post them in the group.
I have a comment.
Oh, go ahead.
And you know me, I never get on the mic, but this is important.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I just want to reiterate and encourage people to do this. Those that already know, it's just a reminder. Those that don't know, the reason that it's my favorite, the Omer count, is important is because during Passover we experience freedom and redemption during, and it counts to Shavuot or Pentecost, the 50th day. And that is, Tovia, help me out. Where's my twin? She could help me out. But the Omer count is the connecting between redemption, between freedom and redemption, and Shavuot. And what's the word? Restoration. What's the word I'm trying to think of, Tovia? I posted it online.
Yeah, restoration, freedom. The whole idea there that there's.
We can be free all we want, but we still have to be given the Torah. And I can't think of it.
Getting out of Egypt, leaving Egypt was one thing to pull out of the, and you're going to see that in one of the videos, by the way, explained very well. Leaving Egypt was just one thing. Now you're on a path to get to the next thing. You got to leave Egypt first. And if you remember, some of you were in my Matrix groups, and the first Matrix movie really is kind of like leaving Egypt. The real work and the real stuff that went on started in the second movie. That was the action to really start restoring things and getting to that point of freedom. It actually mirrors that. So yeah, you have the idea of let's break the negative bonds first, leaving Egypt, but now the work starts. Now the work of fixing things starts. And unfortunately, this is not reflected in some other religious practices, which I won't name, but the idea that, okay, we left Egypt, we got away from that, we're all done. And it's like, no, you got to start moving forward. And there's going to be a lot of challenges along the way. There will be a lot, as we see in the biblical story of the people when they went from Egypt to the land of Israel. There was all kinds of what we would call good and bad things along the way. Everything's from God, no bado, everything's, under God's control for different reasons. So now we're on the path. And there's a sense of, we're going to fix one thing now, and we'll go on and fix something the next day. And it won't be the same for everyone, and it won't be the same for any of us next year or the year after, because we're constantly in a state of change. But it's all good. These are all things, so many ways to look at these things over these 7 weeks. Like I said, tonight we're looking at an overview and like the patriarchs. Week 2, I'm going to be looking at that Stephen Covey material and bringing Torah into it. Week 3, we're going to be looking at prayer and a specific prayer called the Ana B'Koach, but we're going to be looking at other prayers too to see how those things connect to the Omer and how they can help us fix things. And then week 4, 5, and 6 is going to just be weird. We're going to have some crazy stuff covering everything from psychology to all kinds of things in those weeks. Because that's when you get into the interrelationships, as we mentioned earlier, those weeks 4, 5, and 6. So we're going to have some fun there. So we're going to look at this through all kinds of different lenses. And some lenses will relate more to certain people that, oh, I love, understanding these things through art, literature, and movies, or I like the psychological dimensions, or I love studying the lives of patriarchs, or, everyone's different. Hopefully someone gets a little bit out of each week, each approach. And I hope some of you really, some of these things really strike closely with what you're into, what excites you, So it's good to get excited about these things. I'm trying to present a variety of ways. A lot of the stuff, when you look online, it's good, but it's all kind of the same. It's like, all right, this is, I'm not putting it down. It's very homogenous. Is that the word? So I'm trying to look at it very differently each week to make it a little bit exciting. So.
And the word I was trying to think of is restoration.
Yeah.
So we go from between redeemed. It's great to be redeemed. That's great. But you got to be restored back to the beginning, back to Torah. That's the whole point, is we have to go back to Torah. There was a question arose. So just remember that we have 2 days of Passover. So tonight is day 1 of Omer count. And anybody who has an iPhone, there's actually a thing that I use that you can keep count on it. And it also has the entire full prayer. It's just under the app, and it's called Omer Count, Omer. So you look that up, and I know Toby had posted one on Aish that has that also. And literally every night it takes not even a minute, but you can reflect on each day what you're supposed to work on, how you can work on it, and go back into Torah, just like the children of Israel had to go. They were redeemed from Egypt, but they had to do a lot until they went and finally got Torah, and that was the whole purpose. They had to learn again to rely on Hashem, which is what we need to do. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you very much. All good stuff. Terry posted, you must commit to 4 things to interest in God and grow. Yeah, you said 4 things. It triggered another thought and related to what Valerie was saying. There's a verse in the Torah where Hashem says, I forget how it all goes, like I took you, I redeemed you, there's like 4 things in there that actually mirror those 4 levels, those 4 worlds of existence, the 4 levels of the soul within existence and all. It's interesting. It just popped in my head there. I don't know if somebody has that verse, they can find it, but it's interesting. Sidetrack, bunny trail. All right, I need to stop sharing for a moment on screen so I can go find my little baby outline. As you know, I wing it most of the time, but I do have a rough outline so I can plan my cookie break, and I'm just pulling up my it's a very slow computer here. I don't know. This has been a strange night. The internet crashed twice. My computer just crashed, went crazy, and I'm like, okay, we know what that means. It's going to be a fun time tonight. I'm pretty sure this is it. No, that's not it. Oh, let's see here. Hold on one second. When you're looking at the document on the list view and it says, can't minimize the Zoom screen when you're recording. Oh, okay. I won't minimize it then. I gotta get around it here. I have Word open. I can look at recent documents here. And, this is weird. It's not liking me. This is very strange. I'm simply trying to open up a Word doc I had open. This is when the computer crashed a while ago and things went crazy, and it's not showing on my list of stuff here. And obviously, this is it. So, and that's not it. Okay. Huh. So give me a second while I look for this, folks. I don't have my DJ here to play music. I just have to find what happened to this. This is very strange because I put it into a PowerPoint slide. That might be the explanation. Let's see. Sorry for the delay here. I'm trying to search what I did. No, that's not it either. It was a Word doc, and it's kind of vanished from my computer, which, again, I'm not surprised that bizarre things are happening tonight. But this one's really bizarre because how do you make a Word doc completely vanish from your computer? Oh my goodness! It might be a little trickier finding some of my links to everything because I had them all saved in that, and I didn't just save it tonight. I've had this document for days, so it's really strange how this is not showing up here. Well, that's not it. Okay, so we have. All right, here we go. So this says it was last saved a week ago, even though I worked on it tonight. So this is strange. But the good news is I found it, okay? That is the good news. So what I want to do is queue up a couple videos here, short ones. So get your pens and papers out, only because there's going to be little these. Sorry about that. There's going to be some things said in these that I'm sure will be interesting. And if you scribble them down real quick. On here, still got my volume? Yeah, okay, good. So thank you for waiting. I found some videos. Some of these, most of these might be Chabad. I don't just do Chabad. I do wherever is good. And it's funny, I got 3 queued up here that are Chabad, and one's from Australia, one's from South Africa, and the third one's from Canada. And because it's so funny because the accents on the speakers are very different. So each one of these has some neat tidbits in it. So I'm going to play the first one, which is about 3 minutes long. So like I said, if you got a little scribble pad and pen, that's not a bad idea. Whenever I watch videos, I do that. I keep a little pen and paper nearby and just, jot something real quick down. And we can talk about, what I'll probably do is run 2 here in a row. They're both short. They're both like 3-4 minutes. So if everybody's got pen and paper in hand, I'm going to play the first one. To me, they get increasingly more interesting. Not putting down the first one, but the second one has a bit more. And the third one is really loony. You'll enjoy it. Very charismatic speaker in the third one. First 2 a little more serious. Okay, are you all ready? We are going to queue up the first short video. And I want to make sure that I have my audio. Okay, it does say that. And why don't I see that on my selection list? Hold on a second. All right, hold on. I gotta find my. Oh, I have 2 browsers. I'm looking under Chrome, and it popped up in Explorer. That's why I couldn't find it. All right. So this one is actually less than 2 minutes. Okay. So back to my Zoom room and share. Lordy. Back to my Zoom room. Let's try it again, folks. I'm gonna have to open that up in Chrome. It's not pulling it up here. That's weird. Sorry for the delay, but Software is having some issues here. I'm trying to, it's not seeing it when I pull it up in Explorer. So I'm going to kill Explorer, put it in we're getting there. I should be able to pull it up on the list now. Yep, here it comes. Okay, we're good. Here we go. Ready? This is called Let Your Days Shine. If you remember the concept of the sephirah, the word also means sapphire, which is like a stone that you can polish or shine. So, and we're going to play the first video.
We have just begun the counting of the Omer between Pesach and Shavuot. The Hebrew word for counting is Sefirat Omer, or Lispor. What's interesting is that the same word has a different connotation or translation in English. And that is, Sapir means to shine, to be bright, to light up. Now, nothing is a coincidence in the Hebrew language. So the fact that one Hebrew word has two different explanations in English mean that they are connected. What's the connection between counting and shining? And the answer is that to make our days shine, to make our days light up, is through counting. By counting our moments, by counting our days, we show how valuable they are, how precious every day of our lives is. By counting it, we make sure that we bring the day to its true potential. You know, we don't know how long God gives us in this world. Every day is a gift. Every moment is a gift. When we wake up in the morning, we recognize the gift that God has given us, and we say, Modeh ani lefanecha, thank you, God, for another day. And by counting every single day, we show how precious, how valuable it is. This is the message of Sefirat Omer. God told us to count 7 weeks between Pesach and Shavuot, but the instruction of counting is just not limited to 7 weeks. It's in fact a lesson for life. If you want your days to shine, and you want your days to light up and be bright, count them. Make every moment precious. Make every day precious. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.
Okay, was there something wrong with the video there or something? I saw some comments here, or is that for something else? Did everyone see that okay? And hear that okay? Okay, so it did play. I'm going to play one other short one, all right? And then we'll go back and talk a little bit. So, oops, hold on a second, okay?
This week's Parsha, Parshat Omer, is always read sometime between Pesach and Shavuot, which of course is fascinating because it contains the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Counting the Omer is a mitzvah which begins on the second night of Pesach and ends on the last day before Shavuot. Each day we count another number until we reach 49, ready to go into the festival of Shavuot, the festival when we celebrate the giving of the Torah, when we celebrate the Jewish people becoming God's nation, when, as the Tanakh refers to it, there was a marriage, so to speak, between God and the Jewish people. What is the significance of this mitzvah? So we know that the Hasidic masters explain to us that when the Jewish people experience Exodus and freedom on the first day of Pesach, as we re-experience it every single year, that Exodus was a gift from God. Meaning, as we learn that the Jewish people on the first day of Pesach, when they left Egypt, were not ready spiritually. They weren't spiritually mature. They weren't yet on the level on their own to earn that freedom, but yet God gave it to us as a gift. But then he said to us, in order for us to receive the Torah on Mount Sinai, in order for us to become God's nation, in order for us to enter into that marriage, that relationship, that freedom needs to be internalized. That character that we have, that personality that we have needs to be refined and elevated so it's ready to go into that relationship and for us to receive the Torah on Shavuos. And yet, therefore we have the 7 weeks of counting the Omer, 7 weeks of course corresponding to the 7 personality traits that a person has. Each week we refine, we elevate another aspect of our character. This idea is so beautifully embedded in the phrase that the Parsha uses when it comes to the Omer. The Parsha tells us, Usafartem lachem, you shall count for yourselves. What does it mean to count for yourselves? So on a halachic level, the Talmud tells us, it means that this is not a communal mitzvah, it's not something that's done by the rabbi or the Beth Din. Each person has to count on their own. The Hasidic interpretation, the esoteric, deeper interpretation of this phrase goes as follows. The word usafartem can mean to count, but the word usafartem can also mean from the word sapir, to illuminate, to brighten. Lachem means the you, your inside, your internal character, your personality. The Torah tells us the purpose of these 7 weeks is usafartem lachem, brighten, illuminate the you. Make sure that you become elevated. Which means that often we have a spiritual connection, we do holy things, but it's not us. We're doing it because we're connected to our soul. We're connected to some spiritual force which is in us as a foreign visitor, so to speak. And that's why it's igniting that passion, or it's guiding us to do things which are correct. The purpose of the 7 weeks of the Omer is that who we are, our identity, our personality, becomes in line with the refinement and the spiritual maturity necessary to become God's nation. Usafartem lachem, make you bright. The you needs to be elevated. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Okay. I hope you all saw that. Sorry about the delay between the two. I had to, when I'm opening up the links in my Word doc, it opens them up in, what is it called now? Microsoft Explorer. And the software here, the Zoom software, is not seeing those files when I ask it to share something. It's finding it's looking at everything in Chrome only. So I have to copy the link over to Chrome, open it up, and then go find it. So anyhow, there we go. I love that second one especially. There were a couple of concepts that were are remarkably important and interesting. Can everyone hear me? One of the things that the second one talked about more extensively, the verse says, count for yourself. This is an amazing thing. As he said, this isn't just like the leader or whatever saying something for the people. This is each person should and gets to do this. There's, as I said earlier, we're all very independent, unique people. So although we're all doing it, how we view it, how it works in our lives, all of that is going to be very unique to each one of us. And yet we all connect in the same way to Hashem through this. So this is a remarkable process when you think of this and how intimate that verse is. You know, count it for yourself. Do it. Do this thing. So it's a very personal and wonderful. Yeah. It's an internal examination, but it also gives you connections and links to things to help improve yourself. And at an even deeper dimension, if you accept it, there's spiritual conduits through time where you're actually connecting to a very deep dimension of this that is connected to what the people back then went through and everyone goes through, and things in the heavenlies. So this, the more you do this, the more you study, the more you pray and meditate, which is something we're going to talk about in 2 weeks, and then develop a prayer group this summer, prayer and meditation and intention group we're going to do coming out of this. That's the next evolution of what we're doing. The more this stuff really it just blows you away. It really does. It's just amazing, amazing stuff here that Hashem has put in our path. And the more you learn, the more you do, the more you're able to learn and do. As we all know, a lot of us here started at different places. And if you think back where you were 5-10 years ago, and if you tried to talk to yourself 10 years ago about the things you know now and believe now, yourself 10 years ago would probably look at you and say you're a heretic or you're crazy. So it's an amazing process. The other thing that he mentioned regarding that 50th day, and we're going to I'm pretty much talked into having an all-nighter on Shavuot. I think we're going to do that, by the way. So start stocking up cookies and coffee now. But that 50th day, that jump from the 49th to the 50th, and he talks about the concept of a marriage, like Sinai was like a marriage. As I said earlier, there's those first 6 weeks, those first 6 Sephirot are the masculine, the groom, and the 7th one is the bride. And I mentioned how it connects back to Sukkot in the fall, same concepts of uniting the 6th with the 7th. And that's a big deal through all of this too. It's not only the 49, there's also the concept within it of the first 6 weeks and uniting with the 7th, the groom with the bride. And when you go through all 7, right? From Malkut to Chesed, or either way, you probably remember, or from the alignment that the next one above, beyond the 7, is Binah. Binah is associated with the concept of mother, specifically Ima, the upper feminine, and we're going to get into that a whole lot on Shavuot, and we talked about a lot of this in the Matrix series that we did too. Binah in Proverbs is the house that has 7 pillars, the 7 Sephirot, 7 pillars beneath it. Binah is that aspect of God that sets the conditions for us that we need to meet. So even when we go through these 7 weeks with all the Sephirot, each of us individually, we each have our own conditions in our life, what we're born with, genetically, family, environment, all of these things are put there by God for us to work through. We all use the same principles, concepts, and resources God gives us, but we all use them individually. But Binah is that concept of the 8th. Beyond the 7th is the 8th, which relates to the Olam Haba, the world to come, relates to the concept of the Yovel Jubilee, the Yovel freedom. It's Jerusalem above, which is free and mother to us all, if you recognize that very Kabbalistic verse from the New Testament. That is the mother sets the condition for her pillars, her children below. So a lot of family imagery. We'll get into that more later in the weeks ahead. Lasheva has some great stuff on the concept of the divine spiritual personae, which are called partsufim. The concept of father, mother, son, daughter, or groom and bride, all of these things. They're all extremely significant to our learning and growth. I'm looking back here, the Shekinah is the concept of the idea of the aspect of God. God is one. From God's perspective, God is one. End of story. It's Yechid, it's total unity. We talked about that at the beginning of the night. How can we grasp this idea of there being nothing but God that we can't even define? A total unity, no concepts, no definitions, just God, unity versus, everything we can think about and contemplate within creation, within existence. It's some heady stuff. We're going to go into that more and more over the spring and summer. That's the goal. And so I'm reading some stuff here. Comments or questions on either the videos or anything so far? We're going to keep going forward a little bit more at a time. Let's see, what time do we have here? Yeah, we're going to watch one more video, and then we'll talk a little bit more specifically about Chesed and some aspects of Chesed and the prayer that is said every night for the Omer count. It's a two-part prayer. It's very short. The first part is always the same every night. And then the second part is specific where we mention the day of the Omer. And again, when we mention that day of the Omer, it's not just, oh yeah, tonight's 1, tomorrow's 2, blah, blah. It's like, no, tonight's 1 and everything involved with 1, everything that can affect us within that 1, everything through time, going back to Sinai, going back to creation, etc. There's so much packed into each one that we could spend a lifetime in each. So they're very significant to study and to meditate on, to prayer. I can't minimize the thought of maybe it's good to study and then put something in your head and go to bed and meditate on something that you picked up on that day, some aspect of it. Prayer line. So what it's going to be is going to be a group. It's not going to be just what do you need for prayer for? It's not that. This is going to be exploring deeper dimensions of prayer, including communal or group prayer, small groups. We're going to develop these kind of things, these ideas. If you remember earlier when we were looking at that one particular diagram that showed the levels of the soul, and you have physical, emotional, intellectual, and then above that was subconscious, but also what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out here. Communal consciousness, a group consciousness, if you will, beyond. That's that higher level of connectivity that we're going to be discussing and working on. It's going to be a very, some of the things we do are more strict learning, some of them a little bit more experimental, like the prayer thing. The dreams group we had a couple weeks ago. This is going to be a little bit more on the experimental side, the right side, if you will. I say experimental in a very kosher Torah way, of course, So we're going to be looking to push the envelope there. It's time to do it. You know what I'm saying? It's time to do it. So that's our hope. B'ezrat Hashem, over the summer that we're going to get into some heavy stuff there. So it's all good. But first we got to get through the Omer count to, it's kind of funny. We're kind of like working on ourselves here, people involved with this, for Shavuot, but also in another sense, whatever's coming for all of us after Shavuot, Lord willing, Elishev and I we'll have time we both will have time in a few weeks to put some good thought into some interesting stuff this summer. So hot, fun summer ahead. All right, well, comments, questions, or do we want to look at one more video? This one will liven you up a bit. The speaker in the next video, it's a few minutes longer than the last one, not very long, but it's kind of a good overview of a number of things. Again, keep your pencils and papers handy in case there's a few notes. See the last one, I scribbled down count for yourself, and I scribbled down marriage equals Sinai. I just scribbled that on my paper and then, remember to think about it and talk about it afterwards. So do the same. You hear some interesting concepts, do that. So give me 1 second here while I queue up the next video. And welcome to Heather, I guess, who just got here. Cool. So give me a second here as I got to copy that over, as I said earlier. So one moment, I'll be right back, and we'll post another video. Should be up within a minute or so. All right, I found it. It's going to start in about 10 seconds, okay?
Hi, I'm Michael Kegel, and you are clearly someone who needs to know what's up with counting the Omer. But before we ask what's up with, we need to ask what. is the Omer? The Torah tells us in Vayikra, you'll start to count the Omer the day after the Passover festival, namely from the day you bring the Omer, the sheaf of the waved offering. The count will take 7 full weeks. Once the count is done, we designate the following day Shavuot, the festival of weeks. As soon as 3 stars appear in the sky at the close of the first day of Pesach, we bless God for sanctifying us with the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu al sfirat haomer. And then we count, today is day 1 of the Omer. Hayom yom echad laOmer. On the second day, we say today is day 2 of the Omer, and so on for 49 days. Moreover, on day 7, day 14, day 21, every 7 days, we also mark the week. On the 40th day, for example, we say today's day 40, which is 5 weeks and 5 days of the Omer. Why do we count both days and weeks? Well, Vayikra says, you will count 50 days. Dvarim says, count 7 weeks for yourself. So we do both. What happens if you miss counting a day? What do you do then? If you remember during the daytime that you forgot to count on the previous night, you count then and there, but without the blessing. And then you resume counting that night with the blessing. What happens if you miss an entire day, a whole 24-hour period? Even then, all's not lost. You can resume counting night after night, but without the blessing. Good. Now, what's up with all that? What's the big deal with counting anyway? Isn't it enough that we have the 49 days of the Omer clearly marked in the calendar? Let's take a peek under the hood. The Omer period has to be understood in its specific function as a kind of time bridge between the 2 great transformative days that took place in 1313 BCE, the day we left Egypt and the day we got the Torah at Mount Sinai. Every year since that eventful year in history, we build and cross the same time bridge again. We build it by counting, because time things, like time bridges, are constructed by counting. In Egypt, the Jewish people were totally enslaved, body, mind, and soul. The only way out of the total bondage was to make a break for it, to rush out of Egypt. Something like when an addict, who finally one day crashes against his pathetic state, is rushed into rehab by loved ones and desperately surrenders to the care of others. It's in a similar way that the Israelites had to violently break ties with their Egyptian identity in order to completely surrender themselves to God. It was the moment of exit, of Exodus. But the Exodus was just the point of departure. The destination was Torah, Mount Sinai. To receive God's Torah, you have to go beyond such desperation. You have to serve God, as the sages say, with both your hearts, by which the sages meant both that side of your personality that is good, godly, and filled with light, and the not so good, not so godly, dark side of your personality. And this cooperative venture between your illuminated heart and your shadowy heart takes time to coordinate. It takes, 7 weeks to be precise. Going deeper in Kabbalistic depth psychology, the 49 days of the Sphira of the counting correspond to the 49 elemental emotional virtues of the human psyche. The psyche is composed of 3 intellectual faculties, Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at, insight, understanding, and knowing, and 7 emotional ones, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, love, severity, beauty, success, splendor, foundation, and sovereignty. And each one of these is internally articulated into 7 nuances of the same 7 emotions. So you get the love of love, the severity of love, the beauty of love, the success of love, and so on. Altogether, you get 7 times 7, 49 elemental emotional virtues. In the 49-day period of the Omer, each day is another refinement of another particular virtue through the integration of the useful energy that fuels the corresponding vice. Let's just take the first elemental virtue by way of illustration. Let's say, for example, that I envy you. I covet your brand new red sports car. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's red sports car, says the Torah. Envy is a vice. And yet, the secret message inside the envy is, wow, beautiful red sports car. How delighted you must be to have such a delightful thing. Of course, what makes my recognition of your delight a vice is the fact that I would like to take this beautiful, new, sleek crimson joy away from you and for myself. But if only I could break off this selfish motive, what would be left over is the unique power of envy to recognize your delight. And if I could refine the envy into such an emotion, then I'd have what the first day of the Sphira calls CHESED shebechesed, a loving generosity which has been purified of any ulterior selfish motive. You see, the Torah is not for angels, or for human beings who wish to be angelic, and whose souls are fragmented by such a self-destructive wish. The Torah is a divine gift for a soul that has achieved wholeness, having integrated all of its aspects, both the dark and the light, the godly and the beastly. It's the gift that allows one to express one's entire personality, so that the one above can take up residence here below in the neighborhood of your soul. Hi, I'm Michael Kegel, and you...
Gotta unmute myself. There we go. I love that guy. That guy, he's very animated. Yeah, that was good. I put him in order of like dry to animated, the videos. But there's some really, there was some really good stuff in there. That idea of that, you mentioned that idea of that desperation stage. I interact with a lot of people on Facebook every day, and some more than others. And I just see some people that just seem to be stuck there. They seem to be, they're trying, they're willing, they're doing all these things, but they seem to be stuck in that stage where they never go beyond, hoping, wishing, desiring, and not, I guess, not really doing the work, the hard work to walk the path to Sinai, to the what did Valerie call it? Redemption, restoration. It takes work. I was looking at one of the videos we're going to look at in the weeks ahead. You're going to love this. We are going to look at a video discussion, part of it, between Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand. If you're not familiar with them, Jordan Peterson is a clinical psychologist out of Canada who's been in the news a lot and a very public, very in-demand speaker who wrote a book about 12 Steps to Life. I have the book over here. I haven't read it yet. And then Russell Brand, former comedian and drug addict who's cleaned his life up, wrote his own book, and really astoundingly brilliant guys. And these guys have the most amazing discussions. You would never think these two have anything in common, but they're both extremely brilliant. And the discussions are awesome. They actually talk about the 12-step program, right? That, the Alcoholics Anonymous, AA 12 steps. And I'm listening to this thing, and I played it like several times over, and I'm like, I got to share this, because the 12-step program, the way they outline it, actually aligns with the Sephirot. It actually does in terms of what's going on. It blew me away. It's like, wow, that is cool. So we're going to look at that in one of the weeks ahead when we get to that. And, I'm sorry. Someone has to... Oh, Maggie, so sorry to hear that, if she's still here. Be well. Everything will be posted in the group, the video, this video, the slideshow, other notes and links, all good. So please be active in the group for as much as you can to learn and to ask questions and to look at the materials and try to, like I said, try to apply this stuff a little bit every day. Learn, study, and then go to bed and meditate on aspects of it. They're always to connect to God, but deep prayer and meditation, that can really take you places. That can really, really be. What does it say? Rabbi Nachman says that prayer is the main weapon of the Messiah. He calls it the main weapon of the Messiah is prayer. Remember Rabbi Nachman, and there's a reason for that. The ability to free your soul, to connect deeply when you're meditating, praying. So. Anyhow, great video. That was a lot of fun, a lot of interesting things in there. We got a little bit more to discuss. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to talk about CHESED. We're going to get a little bit into the particular Sephirah for this week. We're going to do the prayer, the Omer prayer, so don't go away when we come back. We'll just take a short cookie, bathroom break, whatever you need to do, because we've been online. Not cookie, yeah, matzah cookies. You know what I'm talking about. Just melt some kosher chocolate on your matzah. My wife's like, cookies. I'm like, yeah, I'm so used to saying cookie break. Matzah cookies, baby. Let me tell you, the great stuff. Matzah pizza. I found a recipe. I tagged you on it for matzah lasagna. It actually looked interesting. Well, I want to try it, you know. It's that, you know, the day after Passover, after you finish the leftovers and you're thinking, what am I going to eat now? Salad? Oh, no, I got to start thinking seriously about this. So let's take a short break. Don't go anywhere. Please come back. We will do the prayer for day one and talk about CHESED more and some other cool stuff and a little bit about what's coming up in the weeks ahead. And if you have questions or comments, let's save them until you come back. We'll open the floor a little bit for that. I do encourage people to just say what's on their minds because it sparks good discussion and ideas. The more people talk, the more we all, you know, get some synergy going and get into some fun stuff. So I'm going to mute myself, go get my matzah out, and meet you back here in a few minutes. So hang in there and come back in about 2-3 minutes. Thanks. All right, I am unmuted. No rush, everybody. What was the name of that last video? Oh gosh, I'll post it in the group. Okay, so it'll be posted. I think I may have already posted it in our group, but I will post it there. I just shut it down, so I opened up some other ones. So Michael Kegel was the guy's name, but I don't. Hold on a second. You know what? I have the link. Let me post it for you. I actually have the link here. Da 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 da. All right, Terry, here it is. Can you see that link? I posted it in the chat box. Do you have it? My mic's on here yet. Should be. Are you hearing me okay? I don't know if my mic's working right. All right, it's telling me. You hear me? Hey, you turned me off. Oh, Valerie can hear me. Yeah, but you know, Valerie's taking care of me. Don't worry, you've abandoned me, but Valerie's taking care of me. Don't worry. My wife shut me off. she cut me off. She had enough. All right. Yeah, I know we're in the same room. but you can't tell if I'm talking on the mic. Yeah. No, there are no oatmeal raisin cookies tonight unless you're making them with matzah, which would be extra gross. All right. Yeah. All right. So everybody's back from what they're doing. Let's take a tour. You ready for a little tour? Actually, let's do the prayer. Let's do the prayer for tonight. Everybody come back and all bow your heads. I'm just kidding. I don't do that. I hear a dog walking around me. No, I guess not. I thought I heard that it's a cat. Okay. Mascots are sleeping. All right. Are we all back? Are we all here? Okay. So when you do the blessing, my mouth's very dry. Hold on. I had a glass of leftover Manischewitz and made my mouth very dry. Okay, so when you do the blessing, it's got two parts. One part is the same every night. It's a couple sentences, actually one, and then the other one's very short. It simply reflects the day. Okay, so I'll do that here. So we'll say that we counted it properly. Okay, and then we'll have a little Omer tour of the week, 7 slides looking at each one from an Omer gallery I created. Okay, so the first part goes like this. It goes Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sefarat ha'omer. Amen. Then it goes Hayom Yom Echad leOmer. So the first part goes, blessed are you, God, source of loving kindness. You make us holy through your mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. And then today's the first day of the Omer. Okay. So there we have that. You can find that 2-part prayer on many websites. The English might be different, but it's the same in the Hebrew. So you can go to Chabad, whatever, just type in prayer and you'll find it. There's other places too. So, okay. So what I want to do is share something. Let's see here. Here we go. This is something I created and I've worked on. It's on the 13Petals site. I'll post the link. What I did is looking at, again, each one of these 49 counts, each one of the combinations, there's many ways to look at each one. And you can look at each one in this physical world. You can look at it through the lens of Yetzirah, through the lens of Beria, and so on. There's so many ways to do this. You'll spend a lifetime just analyzing these things and applying them. So what I did, because a picture is worth close to 1,000 words, is I looked at one aspect of each. And I found a picture on the internet, which I stole. I may have created one or two, but most of them I just found as generic photos that seem to apply, in a way. So as we learned, we go each week. This week is CHESED, loving kindness, but we're going to look at each aspect, all 7 within loving kindness. So that's how it works. So here's a picture. I am sharing this, right? Yeah, okay. So here's my first picture. This is off the 13Petals website. The first one is right away throwing you a curveball. Probably not what you expect. Let me scroll this down a bit. All right, so more scrolling to do here. Hold on, I want to be able to get to my scroll bar. Okay, so I found this piece of art, which actually is from some exhibit, and it actually was about the verse in the Song of Songs that actually is posted below, Shir HaShirim 1:9. Okay, and the reason I chose this is with mighty steeds who battle Pharaoh's riders, I reveal that you are my beloved. And the aspect here is chesed within chesed, which reflects the love of God. And that love of God is something we're supposed to reflect in this world. So down here in the lowest world of Asiya, right, the physical world, ultimately that's what we should be thinking and focusing on everything we do, just unconditional love for everyone that we meet. And in a Torah kosher way, love for ourselves, loving ourselves, not in the goofy modern way, but to understand that we're in the image of God and we're here to make corrections, but you can't do that unless you have a love for yourself that reflects God's love for you. And this love, this concept of love that we have down here, and again, we talked about this briefly in the Matrix group we had, emanates from the highest levels of total, pure, no boundaries, no restrictions, unconditional love. That's that idea here of chesed, the total, pure, unadulterated love that at the end of the day, as is written in some other book, prophecy will end and this will end and all, these things will end, but love will remain because love emanates from that highest, the fifth level, as I like to call it, above existence. So this is as reflected within chesed of chesed is the very starting point of pure love of God for his creation and especially human beings. So this is right away you're hit with the biggest concept on day one. This is it. It all emanates out of this. If you're not doing it out of love, you need to go back to step one and understand that it has to be done this way. Everything. That just changes your perspective right away on everything. So Baruch Hashem, that is the first image. Okay, this I'll post the link. This is Omer Gallery, is on the 13Petals site, which is a website I own. And this particular content is stuff I put together. All right, so we're going to go to the second day. You guys still with me? We're going to go to the second day, second concept, which would be day 2. And we're looking now on, let me go to day 2 here. Here we go. Day 2, I love this image that I found. It's so fun. The image here, the concept on day 2, of course, is gevurah, which is called judgment, but it's restriction, it's that kind of thing, measurement. And the idea here is cute in the image. It's the scales of judgment within the sweetness of the cookie. So I thought that worked. It worked for me. But here again, Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, has another verse. His left hand is under my head, his right embraces me. The concept here, the left being the strict side judgment and the right. Even out of another verse, which I didn't post, that Hashem chastises or corrects those he loves, So the idea here, of course, is whereas chesed has no boundaries, as I mentioned, it's pure love of God. Gevurah introduces the idea of restriction or restraint, the power and ability to limit things. Okay, even with creation, when God started creating, he had to at some point, multiple points, say, "Okay, that's right," in that sense. So, you have 2 legs and, 2 arms and not 3 of each, etc. So that everything has a sense of restriction. Without that, it can't exist. So creation, once anything's created, even things you might create, you're drawing a picture or something, you're going to start drawing it, an idea in mind, but at some point you say, okay, I think I'll put, 13 petals on this thing and not 14. Of course, Gevurah is also law, judgment, and those kind of things. Which again have to do with proper restriction. So even something like a correction or a negative thing, there's a proper midah keneged midah. Okay, measure for measure is grounded out of this idea. So in my loving kindness, I'm going to do something to correct you, says God, but there will be proper amount of correction. The proper thing for you to do is gevurah within that. Okay, and that's just, again, this is one aspect of this. There's many aspects to these concepts, and this is just certain ones that we're talking about here. I don't remember what the third one is. Oh, wait a minute, I do. I like the third one. So the third one, Tiferet, which is beauty, harmony, or balance. Okay, and in this one, if you go back to the idea of the patriarchs, so you had Abraham, who was known for his loving kindness, chesed, and openness and hospitality, all this. Isaac, on the other side, was known for these restrictions and measurements. Even at the Akedah, in Genesis, there's only like 4 short sentences between Abraham and Isaac in the entire Torah. You would think there's like lots of dialogue. There's only 4 short sentences, and that's when they're going up the hill with the wood for the sacrifice and the Akedah, yeah. And Isaac asks the questions about, hey, where's the sacrifice we're going to need? So he's immediately looking at, doing things the right way, properly and in order, and that's the only dialogue between the two, which I find completely fascinating. But just as Abraham was too open, too lenient, and needed Sarah, Isaac was also counterbalanced, if you will, by Rebekah, who was known for her loving kindness. So each wife kind of balanced off the husbands who had some deficiency, if you will. Isaac's judgment was off regarding Esau and Jacob. But along comes Jacob, the one who is written that he was in both tents. He learned from both. He was the balance of the two. And Jacob is seen in a very messianic light in Torah literature. The things said about him are very godlike, very remarkable in terms of creating a balance above. So Jacob is that sense of harmony and balance between the two sides, which is Tiferet, beauty in terms of harmony and balance. It's also known as Rachamim, which is the other way of looking at compassion or mercy. Compassion is a good word. I like that one. So that, let's say there's something you're a judge in a court case or something, on the one hand, the person deserves some kind of, correction. On the other hand, you want to have mercy. So, you work out the balance between the two. It's called compassion. It's the proper amount of mercy and judgment. And you arrive at that midpoint of Jacob, compassion. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, these first three are very much internal to you and your change within you at that level. And the next set of three are within each group are more connected to your fellow humans. So let's look at the fourth slide, the fourth picture here. Here we go. This is a cute one. I kind of like this one a lot. The thing in the picture that says, do something that takes fighting for a loved one, I think that comes from Eish HaTorah. I pull these things from everywhere. It's kind of cute. Netzah, like Chesed, you're going back to the right side. So it started on the right side with Chesed, to the left with Gevurah, and in the middle with Tiferet. Now you go back to the right side with Netzah. Only this is a very proactive way of getting involved with things with other people. So you're at this level now of interactivity. We're in that lower triad that interacts with people and things in our environment. Okay, so Netzah is, and we'll be looking at this in a lot more detail. I'm just going through these quickly. When we get to that week, Netzah is the fourth week, which will be a lot of fun too. Okay, there we go. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Hod on the left is associated with Aaron. Aaron was the known as the peacemaker of the people. He would kind of, listen to everyone's arguments when they weren't getting along well, and he had a unique ability to take everything and find the right solution, which is an aspect of Hod. When we cover Hod, we're going to look at some of Viktor Frankl's materials, because some of his famous quotes about taking the environment, the input, everything happening, and then there's this time, this point of space, if you will, where you're in there and you contemplate it and create the proper decision. He looked at it from like a psychological point of view, but you got rabbis saying the same thing, saying you formulate like the correct Torah response. Some of Stephen Covey's stuff relates well to this too. Hod is a big one. Hod is very much in play in terms of our problem solving and day-to-day existence with people. So I like this image here, the couple kind of contemplating something that they need to fix and finding the right solution. And then the sixth one's cool because the sixth one relates to, sixth one Yesod, as I mentioned earlier, relates to connectivity, like Joseph connecting things. So the sixth one is actually Yesod on this day is associated with the time of the splitting of the sea in Torah literature, which of course is God making a real connection, a path through the water for the people to go from Mitzrayim, from Egypt, from that side, through the water, and there's a lot of discussion to what that means, that Egypt doesn't make it through, and over to the other side. It's kind of almost symbolically represents the whole Omer process in terms of we're going from point A to point B. So this is a significant one here in terms of Yesod. So when you look at that Kabbalistic tree of life diagram, Yesod is the one at the very bottom almost, the one right above Malkut. Everything passes through Yesod, just like they pass through the water, down into Malkut, which is the receptive one at the end. And let's look at one more, because this will be the 7th day of the week. Where's my button? Here it is. I don't even remember what 7 is. Oh, 7 is just some text. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the 7th Sefer of Malkut is very receptive and very receptive in terms of everything flows down into it. And it's related in rabbinic literature and Stephen Covey's literature in terms of being our putting things into these things that we learn in the first 6 and kind of like putting them into practice day to day. So that 7th has that aspect of bringing it into the bringing it literally into the real world and making it happen. So that the bottom world is called Asiyah. It's the world of making or the world of action. And so whenever you're talking about the 7th Sephirah, you're always talking about that idea of taking these things, all these things, and putting them into action, which is its own skill, it's its own skill, putting things into action. So the thing here is interesting is that the beginning is always embedded in the end. And as I said a little while ago, it's all about love. So it emanates from the very top, the very origins and the love of God that we should be reflecting in this world. So as this image says, your contribution to the world doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be perfect. It needs only to be loving. So the end here, the 7th, ties back to chesed as a loop, just like when we talk about Ketzer all the way down to Malkut, or we talk about the highest world of Adam Kadmon down to Asiyah. There's always a loop back. Everything connects back to the source. There we go to our matrix study. Everything ends up going back to the source to complete the circuit, so to speak. So, and my mouth's getting very dry again. So we're gonna stop here on the slideshow. Comments, questions. I'll have the link to this in the group. Again, they're just fun slides, pictures that I pulled up to kind of make people think, And and I didn't even look at the bottom here. What does it say? Oh, there's that verse from Micah 6:8 that I quoted earlier. Bottom line, the very bottom line, what it comes down to, the only time in the Torah and the whole Bible where it asks the question, what does God want from us? That's like the ultimate question. And it appears once in the Tanakh, in Micah 6:8. What does God want? Act justly, love mercy. There's your two sides, the left and the right. So have proper balance between left and right, and walk humbly with God, the middle path. It's a really beautiful verse when you think of it in terms of what it's relating to. So our job in this world is to have balance, left and right, and walk humbly. Humbleness, humility, is associated with Malkut, the 7th, the lowest Sephirot, is called the first gate. When we go from bottom to top, it's called the first gate. It's also called humility. It ties into the idea of verses in the Tanakh, like God resisting the proud, but opening his ways, his path to the humble. Moshe was called the most humble man. So humility is the sense of just completely doing away with your ego and understanding exactly where you stand with God. That's the biblical definition of humility. It's not walking around with your head down saying, oh, I'm not worthy. It's not like low self-esteem. You can have high self-esteem. It's great to have high self-esteem as long as it's grounded in Torah, Elizabeth, I'm sorry. This will be online recorded, and also the links and text and stuff will be in the group, so you can look at it leisurely during the week, post questions and comments. So thank you for being here. Do feel better. Yes, have a little matzah, have a little matzah ball soup. That will fix you up really good. So, here's the 7. The 7 form their own little miniature circuit, 1 through 7, and then all 7 is the weeks. They're the circuit of 7. I'm using that word, circuit, loop, whatever you call it. The group of 7 within the week, and then 7 groups on the largest scale, taking you to the 50th, that jump into the 50th represents the 8th week, right? So you go through 7 weeks, then you go into the 8th. So the concept of going from 7, which is the completeness within our world, to the 8th. The 8th is beyond our existence, beyond our world, and enters into the Olam Haba, the world to come. So looking at it on a historical scale, if you go for this stuff, the rabbis, the sages say that human beings from leaving Garden of Eden, coming into the physical existence, to the beginning of the Messianic age is supposed to take 6,000 years. So there's your six Sephirot. And the 7th one is with the restored temple, heaven, spiritual temple, Mashiach, King David, all of that stuff is the 7th Shabbat, is Malkut, is the 7th Sephirah. And then once we go through that 7,000th year period, we enter the 8th Olam Haba, which is your, world to come, your New Jerusalem, on the time when there's no more the Torahs and the New Covenant. Your Torah is on your heart. There's no more evil, no more temptation, no more free will, no more sin, no more consequence of sin. That's all gone at that point. Fascinating reading, if you're okay reading it, is the last 2 chapters of the book of Revelation. That's the most amazing text there is, actually relating the Olam Haba for specific things. It's a very amazing text to analyze. Very Jewish text. If you don't read the New Testament, fine. But, if you want to look at a very Jewish mystical text concerning the 8th, or Binah, the world to come, it's those last 2 chapters of Revelation. They're insane. And we'll talk about those one day too, probably in the fall. Because I have a study going on in Revelation, which I've got done through chapter 18 or so. So I'm doing all this stuff now, so it's all on hold. But it'll get completed at some point, and that will be part of a deeper study later this year, hopefully, Lord willing. Comments, questions? Everybody still awake? We good? I got one more short video and a couple other things we can talk about. Huh? Yeah, I'm going to pack all 49 in tonight. No, it's not Shavuot. We're not staying up all night tonight. But we will in Shavuot. I've been talked into it. We've done it before. No, we don't do it every year. It's tough, But we've done it before. But the trick is to have some fun things lined up, because otherwise we're just all going to, But we'll work on that. All right, who's still here? Are we still here? Okay. Valerie, I know you're always here. Again, I'm packing it in with a lot of short videos tonight that are interesting. There's we need a lady, we need a woman, a video with a woman. So I've got one. I got a really good speaker, the Rebbetzin. She's very sharp. She's got a whole series on all 7. There's 7-minute videos approximately, which is kind of funny. So I'm gonna play her 7-minute video, which a tiny bit of the same stuff we talked about, only it's she's got her own way of looking at it in terms of a little background, but then she gets into chesed a bit. So we'll do her videos each week because they're pretty good. So I'm going to cue that up here. And thank you for sticking around. I know it's getting late, 11 o'clock here, so we've got a couple hours. But let me cue up one more short video. Again, I think it's about 7 minutes. So let me go do that. I'll be right back here. I just need to find the link and put it into that. Let's see, we did that. Okay, here it is. This is, her name is Hannah Rachel Schusterman. And copy volume a little bit, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't think it's bad, but I think it might be. It won't be as noisy as the last guy. Let's put it that way. He was loud. The video was loud. All right. Oh, here we go. I found the video. I got it queued up. Now I just got to come back to you guys and look it up here. Here it is. All right, are we ready? Here we go. And start.
We are entering the period of Sfirat HaOmer. This is the time that begins on the 2nd day of Passover and is a 7-week period of preparing for Shavuot, when God gave the Torah on Mount Sinai. So this is a process of counting 49 days one at a time until we come to that 50th day. Each holiday is a channel in time with the same energy that goes through each and every one of the generations, so that each Passover we go out of whatever imprisons our ability to express our purpose in the world. And now, during the time of counting of the Omer, we have the ability to be able to refine our emotional character traits and thereby transform ourselves into a people who are ready and able to live for a higher purpose. God freed the Jews by taking them out of Egypt after 210 years of slavery. However, the people were affected by that time and needed to refine their traits. In this 7-week process, they became free in an inner way. After this process of self-refinement, they became a people ready for the giving of the Torah. The Torah guides and teaches how to fulfill God's purpose for the world in an actualized way. Each week is an opportunity to work on one of 7 qualities. This is the first week, and we're working on the quality of CHESED, which is the trait of kindness, giving, and expansiveness. This is one aspect, but it affects each and every quality for all of the weeks. And that's why Chesed is first. Our Chesed, our ability to love, is essential to who we are and to who we are meant to be. And therefore, we work on this first. Each week, when we go through a quality, we inter-include it with all of the others. That means that when we begin with Chesed or Gevurah, the second quality, or Tiferet, the third quality, each week when we go through the quality, the first day of the week is Chesed. The second is Gevurah, the third is Tiferet, through each week of working on an entire quality. That allows us to polish each and every facet of the quality that we're working on, so that each trait, when it is worked on and refined, balances the other. For example, the trait of Chesed that we're working on right now guides us on how and where to love and to give. Next week's trait is awe, and that is also self-discipline and boundaries. So we can see that each trait works with the other and becomes part of an integrated personality, which is able to actualize higher purpose. What does it mean to work on Chesed? Well, in Chesed, we emulate God's giving to us, and we work to become givers. We recognize God's kindness to us, and we want to pass it forward. We want to see the good in each other, and we work so that we could have a good eye, a good heart, so that whatever situation we're in, we could see the good. And working with this quality helps us to approach life with a positive, generous, good attitude. Love is the emotion that we feel when we give. By giving to a spouse, a child, a friend, we increase our feelings of love, because giving develops love. So in this time, we work on giving in a good and constructive way with generosity, giving in the right time, in the right place, in a way that the love that we're giving can be received, with a good motivation, to care in an unselfish way. Each trait is represented by a biblical figure who exemplifies this quality. This first quality of Chesed is exemplified by our forefather, Abraham. Abraham related totally to God's giving and God's greatness, and he related with an absolute love for God in every situation of his life. Abraham emulated God's loving kindness, and he was dedicated to giving with kindness and generosity. Every day, whoever he met, he wanted to take care of. He invited people into his tent to give them physical sustenance, spiritual sustenance, and he taught them that there is one God. As we go through each week and each trait, our emotions become more refined and balanced. Each day and each week, another facet of our personality is freed of ego limitations and becomes able to express potential. In this week, as the Jews traveled through the desert, they focused on loving God and on loving each other. In this week, as we work on our chesed, we can do this by being caring and sensitive to each other in all of our interactions. We can care about another person by giving him the benefit of the doubt. When we have the opportunity, we can be generous in every way to another person. And as the Jews went through the desert, they worked to refine their qualities. As we go through this period of the counting of the Omer, let's make every day count.
It helps if I unmute myself. Boy, I just said some of the smartest thing ever, and I was muted. So I love her videos. I find that the way women explain things oftentimes is different and more comprehensive, very unique insights compared to men. So I really like her videos. She's got 7 of them, one for each week. I'm going to look at one each week from her because they build, as she mentions in her video, they build upon things each week, improvement and change toward the direction of being in the image of God. So I love her videos, so we will be looking at them. I also got a book. I actually got a book this week. That's not a big deal. I have lots of books, but I got a book because it looked interesting, and it really is. It's a book by another woman, Min Kantrowitz. I'll put the link in the group, called Counting the Omer, Kabbalistic Meditation Guide. And she has a very neat approach to this. She goes, there's a little background info, but then she goes through all 49 days, all 49 gates, if you will. And each one she looks at through the 4 worlds of existence. So she gives some insights, like a chesed of chesed. I'll just read a tiny bit of this, but she looks at each one. So it's chesed of chesed today. In our world of Asiya, right? Then in the angelic world of Yetzirah, then in the heavenly realm of Beria, and then above that, in the world of Atzilut. And she has a little, little piece, paragraph and meditation, if you will, on each of the 4 levels. I haven't seen this approach before in a book or anything. I've seen it maybe mentioned, but this book's really cool. So I'm going to look at it some more. I've looked at it enough to say that I do recommend it. And I'll post that as an example here when speaking of chesed. And so at the end of this chapter, she gives, like I said, these 4 examples. So she talks about chesed within chesed, right? Loving kindness within loving kindness, which is today. And she talks about it in the world of Asiya, this lowest world, our existence. And she says about talking about sowing abundant seeds of endless kindness. And she writes here, plant some seeds today. Perhaps they are physical seeds of flowers or vegetables you can tend through the Omer season. Perhaps they are seeds of a relationship that needs tender care. Perhaps the seeds you sow are ideas that with your continued attention can sprout and grow. Nurture these seeds as you count the days. So she takes that concept and puts it in the physical realm in different ways. Then she talks about chesed. She talks about chesed within the world of Yetzirah, the next world, which is the world of emotions, talking about focusing on the feelings of caring, kindness, and loving witness without boundaries. She says these help us to overcome emotional obstacles and develop our unique ways of being blessings in the world. And then her meditation here is remember that you deserve to be nurtured through your life with endless love. From your own experience, picture the security and depth of that love, and now imagine how you can share that kind of love. This goes back to some of the Elishavis teachings on the bird of shame, that we're not just here just to receive from God one way, but we're to be two-way vessels where we take that and we put it outward toward others. Then she goes into today's day, Chesed in the world of Berea. She says, consider we are all born with the understanding of chesed, but many of us lose touch with that knowledge as we move through our lives. So it's about relearning at that level. This is the intellectual level of Berea. And she writes that the meditation, take a few deep breaths, and with the last of them in the silence of your mind, open up some deeply hidden part of yourself to accept the knowledge that the flow of loving kindness is eternal and you deserve it. So each one of these has a paragraph of information with a meditation at the end through the 4 levels. I find it fascinating. So the last one, of course, is Atzilut, which is beyond creation. And for today, she says, sit down in a comfortable place, breathe slowly. With each breath, focus more strongly on how each being, each human, tree, plant, and animal is being sustained at this moment by the unconditional love of God. She writes, we often use the expression, I took a breath. Instead, consider the idea of receiving a breath, each one a gift of love. Meditate on the nurturing love of God. So I like this book because, like I said, she takes each day and looks at it through each of the 4 worlds. And it's I'll post the link. I bought it, I don't know where I bought it, from Amazon or something, used. And it only has a couple of yellow highlights in it. And other than that, it's in new condition. So, but you can find a good price on it somewhere. So I'll post the link for this book because it's a great resource. I've never seen a book that takes each day and goes through the 4 worlds of existence with each one. So that's like a whole other aspect of learning the Omer. So this is good. One more thing, right? You guys are hanging in pretty good. Comments, questions, discussion. What do we want to talk about here? Don't make Valerie take the mic. I'm kidding. What do we got here? 11:23. So again, I'm going to post stuff in the group. Try your best if you can to give a little thought each day to what it's about. Whether you use the Omer gallery images or other links that I post. There's multiple ways. Or the book. I'll post the link to get the book. Maybe you can get it before the next week. It's shipped in the next couple of days. There's multiple good articles and things online. This is really, it's not just something you go through like religion. People look at this and say, oh, you're just doing a thing every day. Like some people just, every Sunday I go to church and can't wait to get out, come back to the football game. And they just do it because, they're told to do it. That's not what this is about. This is about, there's real spiritual connections that go through time, go into the spiritual realms, all of this stuff. It's real. And it's the way God has set things up. And Torah and these insights in Torah give us the ability to make some very profound connections through our soul. Our soul connects us to God through all these worlds. And, it's just a matter of doing it. And it's I posted something earlier today from Rabbi Tzvi Friedman. He says about intellect and faith, right? Intellect is the path that shows you how to get where you want to go, and faith kicks the door in. Faith doesn't know the way. It just knows to just jump in without reason. And intellect is simply, the path, but it doesn't have that ability to make that jump. So you use your intellect and faith, or another way to look at it is study and prayer, meditation. Those things combined give you the ability to, knock the door down. And when you knock the door down, guess what? You're in the next place, and you start your path to knock the next door down. And that's not a negative thing. These are just improvements and drawing closer and closer to God through these different things that we have. There's more stuff now available to us than any time in history. I mean, if you have an internet connection, the stuff you can find in one night is more than people could find in their lifetimes before. There is just so much incredible, kosher, good Torah information out there, whether you're looking to just put things in your day-to-day routines, or adding to your prayer meditation, or how to look at the Torah through, different angles, different aspects. All of these things are out there. They're in English and other languages, but, it's all being put out right now at this time in history. And more and more is coming. You can't keep up. Tomorrow there'll be even more. So it's the real deal, folks. And it's like I try hard to not be negative about things, And I posted a couple things last couple of weeks, like dropping hints. It's like, hey, I see people spend hours on the internet, on Facebook, and they're just talking about politics and the world and this and that, and it's like, where's the time you're putting into these deeper Torah things? It's like, it's almost like, well, I read the Bible, I know what it says, and I just wanted to, do that. But there's, all of these mystical aspects are real, of connection. And, the people who are wise enough to do this are going to have levels of understanding and ability for anything and everything in this world and in the years, the time that's coming, all of this. So I'm preaching now. I'm not a preacher, but I'm preaching now. People need to get off their butts. And the funny thing is sad thing is, while there's more Torah information coming out than ever, it's like it's written in a few places that people are just not going to be, people are going to move away from Torah study in the end of days, so to speak, disinterested, caught up in the world. And you see that on Facebook, you see that, and people join groups and they seem excited and they just fall away and things like that. And we get like almost 200 people in this Omer group, 187 last I looked, maybe more now. And it's like, oh, okay, we had like 7 here tonight. And I know people are busy and doing the other Seder and other things. I understand that. But it's like there's so much stuff to learn and do, yet people are spending their time on trying to understand the news and the headlines and all that. And it's like, wow, if you learn the Torah, you won't need to look at the news headlines. You'll already know what's going down, So I'm done preaching. That's it.
Sylvia.
Yes, please stop me. Go ahead.
So you asked for it, you got it.
Oh boy, here we go.
Careful what you asked for.
I'm turning up my volume. Go for it.
Yeah, you bet. That's better. So anyway, this is loving kindness on top of loving kindness. And you did just mention do. We're supposed to do things. And that's always one of the big things. Well, you're trying to win your salvation. Well, of course not. We're here to repair the world. So loving kindness on top of loving kindness is a perfect time to bring up that. So one of the biggest questions I had, one of the first questions in this walk was, wow, what does it mean, love thy neighbor as thyself? And it's like, you think I'm going to love a terrorist or, a murderer or anyone like that? You've got to be kidding. I'm human. It ain't going to happen. So I just got some insight a little while ago now that when we do good stuff, loving kindness, give to charity, help people out, do the mitzvah, this does on earth as it is in heaven. We all know that prayer. And it helps repair the world. When we sin, we're not only hurting ourselves, we're hurting the world. We're hurting our community. We're bringing down negative negative things. We're creating negative things when we sin. And of course, oh, please forgive my sins, and they are. But what damage have we already done to the world, the community? And if we hurt the community, we hurt ourselves. If we help the community by the good deeds, then we help ourselves. And there is the understanding of love your neighbor as yourself.
Thank you. Yes. You mentioned a prayer, the Our Father which art in heaven. We're going to talk about that in week 3. I have a thing on 13 Petals. I don't know if you saw it, that prayer goes right through the Sephirot, goes right through these emanations, and as does the morning, the Amidah in the morning, which most traditional Jews pray that, and they're very connected, those two. So we're going to look at that kind of stuff in prayer too, because it's just amazing what's built into prayers. There's other things too in the text of the Bible, and I will pull 1 or 2 out of the New Testament because they are very kosher Jewish teachings. So I'll be looking at some of those. But yeah, the whole idea of how we treat our neighbor and everything is real interesting because, every person is in the image of God. Every person has these things inside them that are trapped by things they're born with in their genetics, or trapped by things in the world and everything that need to. There's a concept here of like holy sparks, these aspects in creation that are scattered throughout. And our job is, by doing the right things, is elevating these things back to the Creator. That's a strange concept, but that's, strange in terms of, it takes some explaining, but that idea. So I saw this teaching once years ago. This was actually an Orthodox rabbi talking about the idea of turning the other cheek, or that kind of thing. And the question addressed was, oh yeah, you want to be a doormat and let people walk all over you, and he addressed that very brilliantly, saying that no, he says, when you do that, it's not just about being a nice guy or forgiving it. That's all true, but it's about the other person. You're doing something for that other person in terms of how they will react to that. And this hidden aspect of chesed, right? That's unconditional, turning the other cheek. That aspect of that within that person that's trapped might be released and elevated to God. So when you turn the other cheek, you're actually helping the holy sparks that are embedded in that, hidden in that, trapped in that person, to be released to God. So you're doing something for them and for creation and everything by doing that. He gave this very interesting, deep teaching on that. This was like 15 years ago I heard this, and it's like, wow, first of all, he's teaching about something in the New Testament. And like I said, he was Chabad. And it's like, wow, this was great. So yeah, every person has these things in them. All the writings you read you'll find something like that. And of course, we want to find those in ourselves and fix them. I love the concept of polishing the stone and making it, removing impurities and making it brighter. And sometimes it's difficult. There's a story or a parable, if you will, about the silversmith that continues to put the metal into the fire and burning it. And finally, at the end, he knows that it's done when he can look at it and see himself. And that's a beautiful analogy, too, to this. Sometimes it takes trials and difficulties, but it's always toward that same goal, and cool. Please, folks, anyone, throw something on the table. Yeah, connections. I don't know if you were here earlier. Let me put something back on the screen, because a couple people got in late. So give me 1 second here. I hope I didn't. No, I almost shut the meeting down by accident. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to, where was that? Oh yeah, it was in my, here, okay. Here it is. Yeah, this was cool. No, that's not it. Hold on. Oh, there it is. I need to go back to page up. And then I got to go back to you guys. I'm going to share this. Heather, I think, came in late. I don't know who else, but this is pretty neat. All right, can you see that? Here we go. So whoever wasn't here at the beginning missed part of this, and I'll have this whole slideshow to look at. But this slide was pretty cool in terms of, connections. And really, the whole Bible, the whole Torah is about connecting. us back to God, which is interpreted in ways. In fact, the whole idea we talked about, that aspect of the male and female bride and groom, like at the Sukkot when you unite the masculine and feminine through the lulav and the etrog. That whole bridegroom connection analogy is the entirety of Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs in the Bible, which is Song of Songs is basically everything there is in one book. It's all in there. It's very deep, and it's all about that idea of uniting that within ourselves and the world with God, the male and the female. All of these terms that are on the screen are in the Torah and Torah literature, and it's amazing to see the root words and all that are behind them all, because they all mean the same thing. They all mean connection. Mitzvot, tefillah, ketorah, kabonot, da'at, and navodat. They all mean connection. That's just amazing, and all different aspects of it. So I'll have this slide presentation up independently of the video in the group by tomorrow or so, Lord willing. Please, folks, comments, questions, anything at all. It doesn't have to be about this stuff, just anything related to the Omer count, Pesach. Passover is interesting. When you start reading things like the Zohar, it gets pretty wild, it gets pretty weird. The whole idea that there's like these different times of the year that have different types of spiritual connectivity, right? And the Omer count, these 49 days is one, but specific days too. And the whole idea that the calendar itself, or days, weeks, months, and years, have cycles within them that like kind of go like, if you will, like an ebb and flow, or like closer. Put it this way, closer to God and further away, back and forth for a purpose, right, for a reason. And on the yearly scale, the month of Tishrei, which is Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot and Yom Kippur, is like considered the holiest month, the closest to God. It's nicknamed God's favorite month in some literature, right? So that's at that end of the scale. And of course, Sukkot in the middle on the 15th is celebrating like the whole messianic realm, right? It's here, right? The lulav, the etrog, the chuppah, the sukkah is the chuppah, and all this stuff. So that's like the pinnacle of completion. So what's on the opposite end of the year is the middle of Nisan, is Passover, Pesach. Pesach's on the opposite end of the year, furthest away from that holy month. So that's a very auspicious time in another way, in terms of we're in the middle of this month that's far away. It's actually nicknamed in some literature the month of Shadim, of demons, the month of Nisan. And that's nothing to be scared of. It's simply saying that they have the most activity in the spiritual realms that is in what we would call a negative sense, because it's furthest away from the other part of the year. It's fascinating, some of the literature. And Passover, Pesach's right in the middle of it. And there's a direct correlation between like Passover and like Yom Kippur. The Zohar says they're connected because Yom Kippur is on the 10th, and Passover, they would choose the lamb on the 10th. It actually talks about the 10th, and then it would be like 4 days before they would hold on to the lamb before Passover, and those 4 days represent the 4 worlds of existence we talked about. There's some crazy stuff, and it's like, okay, it's getting very mystical here, but and then you have the monthly cycles where you have the new moon, the full moon, and then you have weekly cycles from Shabbat to Tuesday night. The Zohar says don't go out at night on a Tuesday night. It doesn't say Tuesday, but it says something like that. Furthest part away from Shabbat. It says, yeah, you gotta be careful. Stuff like that. It's really crazy. And then, of course, daily you have night and day, and day is good, night is bad. But if you rise up in the middle of the night to pray, you're taking on things head on. Just like Passover, it's in this month. It's taking things on head on. The different type of aspect of connections. Sometimes it's smooth going and you learn and it's all great, and other times you're up against something, but there's a reason for that. And those are the times you really can advance, when there's friction, when there's conflict. There's the potential for the greatest advancement. I mean, this goes back to Genesis 1 with the creation of Chava Aviv, who's called the opposite helper, the help beat, I think, in some Bibles. But the concept in the Hebrew is that she is to provide the gevurah side, the restraint, the constriction, the friction that will enable Adam to grow. Because without it, there's no friction. You just go along it's just like people, if you're unemployed or something, after a while you're just hanging around the house, you're not doing anything. You just kind of fade away. You need things to butt your head up against, et cetera, to grow. So is there a specific prayer in Siddur for midnight or right after midnight? Yeah, I think there might be. I just, right now, I'm not in that frame of mind to think where that is. But yeah, there's I'd have to find it for you. It's been a while. You're probably right. Yeah. We're going to have a great time with prayer. Elisheva is going to get more involved in week 3. I'm doing, week 2. Stephen Covey's my boy. I love his stuff. I use his stuff to teach with and myself to learn. And I'm working on some other project with, I'm working on a psycho-spiritual kind of project to develop things. My goal is to develop some programs to get out to schools, to kids, starting around grade 1 and all the way through college and beyond, like a 4-part program, to help them understand. Basically, it would be all the stuff we study and learn in Torah, but it would be kind of a secular version, so it wouldn't offend anyone, and give them all of these understandings of how we function. There's a lot of problems out there. Mental health issues are the big thing now, and they're all traceable back to kids. I was saying like 75% of adult mental health issues are now traceable back to age 14. It's crazy. So the kids, the big problem part of this is that the world we live in, technology has moved so fast in this generation that we have not been able to understand it and keep up with it and understand what's happening to this generation coming up in this world. It's crazy. There's never been anything like this, and it's creating a lot of issues. So no matter what crazy issues you have, this goes back to the cloud atlas concept. Clouds keep moving, but how can you have an atlas, a map of clouds, if they keep moving? It doesn't seem to make sense. But if you get these fundamental ideas of how we function into kids at an early age, at a deep but easy little understanding level, I think it needs to start there. Right now it's starting with let's recognize these problems. There's a local doctor where I work for healthcare, and he's not a doctor, he's a former Chief Justice of New Hampshire Supreme Court. His own son had mental health issues and almost killed him. His son went to jail and everything. And he started this whole program of trying to help kids at a young age. But it's always like after the fact. It's like, well, if you see these signs, these things, here's something you should know about or could do. But that's still not too late, but it's already happening. I want to get stuff starting at an early age with young people to give them these foundations of how we function and how to properly deal with it before any of these things start to develop, and they do develop at a very young age. So that's my major big bucket list project, depending on my work situation. If I have time and ability to do that, is what I want to do. And it all relates to the Omer count and the matrix study and the Derek Hashem. All this stuff is connected and tied together, and would, stuff that the world needs, especially young people, because it's just tragic what's happening. They're thrown into this crazy world of technology, moving thousands of times faster than anything we experienced. And they're left on their own to try to deal with it, figure it out. And it's creating such major problems. It's horrible. And it comes out in many ways, through bullying, through sexual activity at very young ages. It's very demeaning, through depression, suicide rates, all this stuff. It's just crazy statistics coming out. And the answer is Torah. But you can't just give Torah to people. They have problems with it, but there's ways to do it. That was one of the themes of the Matrix study, the Matrix movie. We looked at the videos by Rabbi Gideon Holland and the other gentleman. They did these 10-part videos on the Matrix, and they called it a Trojan horse because it's full of Torah concepts that everyone starts talking about and debating and thinking about and applying, and they don't realize they're Torah concepts because it's hidden in the Matrix themes, So the same idea here. How you present things to people. That's one of our, let me find that one. This is a beautiful one. I got to show you something. Let me stop the share for a second. Just made me think of something. Where is that? That would be, I need to go to my, hold on one second. Find my way over to the 13Petals project and the Omer gallery we were in, and I'm trying to think which one it would be. I'm going to guess it's this one. Bingo, nailed it. Oh, sweet, got it on the first try. Okay, let me put it up on screen for you. All right, I love this one. This is one of my favorite ones. Believe it or not, it's Geburah within Tiferet. So Geburah is restriction, Tiferet is balance, right? And I just love this one. Okay, everybody see this? Geburah Tiferet, discipline within compassion. And I love this quote below. Compassion is not an expression of the bestower's needs. It's a response to the recipient's needs. And I just love that quote. And I found this image, which I thought was perfect. You know, it's like, you know, giving everybody what they need. And it's not just 3 identical meals that are smaller, but packaging things in a way to get to people. So I go on Facebook and I talk about with people. I talk about sports. I talk about music. I talk about weird stuff. I'm fortunate enough to have had a lot of time in my 61 years of life to get involved with a lot of things and read a lot of things and know enough about it to start conversations, always with the goal of trying to, you know, finagle the conversation into a discussion about Torah concepts without the person even realizing it. And you can do that with anything at all, anything. It's just a matter of understanding how. So, you know, you're packaging your Torah message in a way that I know it said that it's, you know, to, you know, bring the Torah to everyone, and if absolutely necessary, use words. That is true. You know, example and stuff is good, is even better. But when you're interacting with people for the first time, or you're interacting on the internet, you're limited to, you know, conversations and things like that. So packaging a conversation in a way that is appropriate. So you're restricting, you're taking your Torah concepts and your Gevurah, you're restricting them into a package and then delivering it in a balanced way. So that's Gevurah within Tiferet, if you follow what I'm saying. I had a friend, Lasheva and I, years ago, were friends with a gentleman. He was an older man, brilliant. He was a plasma physicist, okay? This guy worked on Ronald Reagan's Star Wars program, the Strategic Defense Initiative. He was working on all the black programs, the hidden, you know, the secret programs and stuff. And, you know, he was a super brilliant guy. Started off very atheistic. We met him because he was trying to get back in the good grace of his wife, who was studying with us, and he and his wife had drifted apart over the years. So he was trying to, in his later years, he wanted to reconnect with his wife. So he started coming to these Bible studies with her with little or no interest. And of course, he meets my wife, Elisheva, who knows about, you know, every part of science you could think of. She's brilliant. And they start talking, and he's like, you know, he's like, what's going on here? And I met this woman in the Bible study, and she's talking about physics and all kinds of aspects of science, and they just hit it off. They just completely hit it off. And he starts studying the Torah and starts getting into it and seeing things. And it was mind-blowing what this guy did, you know, just, you know, and the package was science for him. You know, the package was these things. And he made a Torah connection before he passed away. He was just absolutely, he would call us and say, when's the next Torah study? Or can we have one on this night? And it's like, this guy had zero interest, atheist when we met him. And 18 months later, he passed away of a heart failure. But in that time, we grew very close, and he just completely embraced Torah because it was packaged the right way for him, you know? In the New Testament, Paul writes, to this one I became like this, to that one I became like that. Same idea. He's not changing the Torah or diminishing it. You package it, you restrict it according to the person's needs. So you got to take the time to learn a little about the person. I love profiling people on Facebook. Whenever I meet somebody the first time, I'm right on their web pages looking through their conversations. I don't just look at what they say about themselves. I read their conversations to see, like, where are they coming from? How do they think? And then I start a conversation with them. And it's like they already know me or something. It's like, hey, you know, you talk like me. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. So it's sneaky, but that's what you do to make Jay. You got to be clever. Was it clever like a serpent? You know, that's what that is. You know, love. What is it? be like kind like a dove or something and sneaky like a serpent. I forget how that goes. But that's the, somebody's going to have to help me with that quote. It's getting near midnight, so I'm rattling off here. I'm out of Menashevitz too, so I'm just desperate for. No, I don't really like Menashevitz. It's just once a year we get it. I'm also not a horseradish eater, but you mow it down. Open forum, folks. Go ahead. It's midnight. The kids are all asleep. So, what's the question? Crazier the better. Take the mic or post something. I, for one, would not eat those green peas on the plate. We have this issue here in the house, with like the chicken and potatoes or fries and then the green peas. I'm like, no, don't ruin my meal with the green peas, please. Yeah, midnight prayer. Oh yeah, we are coming up on that here. Valerie's gonna have to lead us in midnight prayer. So I'm very excited about this group, and not just the Saturday night things, but stuff during the week. I hope we can engage more of those 187 people in our group to get involved with the reading the articles and watching the videos and then asking questions. That's what we need. We need to keep asking each other questions and starting discussions and coming up with ideas and explore crazy stuff. And, that's how you grow with God. That's how you change and then help other people. And just the more elevated, you're elevating your soul more and more to Hashem. And I'll tell you one thing, stuff happens. We talked a little bit about weird stuff in our dreams group a few weeks ago. It was dreams and spiritual phenomena, and stuff. I didn't tell all my stories because some of them are too weird, but it's just amazing what happens as you get closer and closer, for real, closer to Hashem. A lot of people just don't understand what that means, and even religious people that go to church or synagogue and whatever, it's still really just outward stuff. Sometimes they get emotional, and I'm not talking about a good, proper emotional connection. They just get emotional about some spiritual thing, and which fades with time pretty quickly. And that's often mistaken, or it's almost like a counterfeit spirituality, if you will. Like somebody will go to a movie or a spiritual movie, religious movie, and they're like, oh, I felt so close to God. I was crying and felt so close to God in that movie at the end. And it's like, you talk to them a few days later, and it's like, that was a great movie. And it's like, what did it do for them? At that moment, they felt it was like the ultimate connection, but it was just a very superficial emotional thing. And there's ways to connect with Hashem at the level of emotion that are, based in prayer and meditation, that are very deep and profound, but they're very real. This is, it's hard to explain to people unless you've been there. So. All right, we still have a lot of people here. This is good. All right, Valerie, you got to come up with a topic here because we still have a few people in here, and I'm still awake. So, I think I'm going to make a matzah pizza later. I don't know if you've ever done matzah pizza. You just take the matzah and you put your pizza sauce on it, and you put your cheese on it. And if you like, you sprinkle a little oregano, and you put it on a plate in the microwave for I think 60 seconds at the most. And you watch it, but I think it's 60 seconds. And it's awesome, the matzah pizza, like the fastest little snack you can make. And it's really good. Yeah, this is a good opportunity. I love talking about crazy things. If you don't know, I do. So, anything at all. No mushrooms, no. I'm not going to go there. Actually, I don't mind mushrooms on pizza, but I would not like them in the microwave. They got to be baked to get some of the gushiness out of them. I don't like the texture of mushrooms. I'm a big texture person, and I don't like the texture. So, well, you're not even serious now with the raisin comment, but I'll let you go on that one. But I do make, my wife will tell you, she loves, I make a good vegetarian pizza with black olives, mushrooms, red peppers, and onions. Usually those are the four things. That comes out pretty darn good. So, no, I don't get pine. Well, usually the pineapple crowd goes with ham and pine. I never understood that ham and pineapple connection. I don't eat it, of course, but it's like, this just seems weird. I do love barbecue chicken pizza, though. That, oh man, I'm dying now. I gotta eat matzo. I gotta get my matzo pizza going. So yeah, this is going to be a fun ride here during the week. So I'll be posting the Omer gallery picture. I'll probably put that right on my homepage image. I did that last year. I just changed my profile, not the profile picture. What do you call it? The picture at the top of your page, the big one. So I'm probably going to post the Omer for the day with a link to our group each day. Hopefully, Lord willing, that helps me to remember the Omer, or the Omer will help me remember that. And I'll be doing that and trying to find more good material for each day. I do view this as really important. It's not a lot of hype. This is really, as I get older, as I talk with people on the internet every day, I'm on the internet more than, I think my wife said, probably more than anyone on the planet since before people even knew about it. I was on the internet doing things before America Online started. Back in America Online started around 1990. I was doing stuff on local internet groups like they were called listservs and groups like the GE Network and the Genie Network, Delphi, Prodigy. They had all these networks out there. I was doing stuff like that. Then around 1990, AOL got going. I helped them start their chat rooms. They were experimenting with things, and I was having some enormous success with their chat rooms, which were all text-based. And they actually approached me and said, how you get, what's going on here? So I kind of gave them some help there. They actually put me on their staff and helped AOL develop their early chat rooms and really got them going. They were making a ton of money because you paid by the hour back then. So they were making a killing. I never got any money from them for that. But I did meet my wife that way. My wife, Elisheva, was a chat room host for me. I trained her, and she was managing some religious discussions. And we started talking and talking and talking for over a year, and texting and back and forth for over a year on the phone. Oh gosh. And then she came out here. She came out here, and a year later we got married, and so the story goes. So I was on AOL for many years. I had a Jewish/Christian type magazine going, developed some chat rooms and discussion folders, all that stuff, email list of like 20,000 people. It was madness. That was pretty cool. Started the Yashanet in 95. Then later went on, so I started going on the web. The web got hot around 94. I had my first website. In 1994, there was about 1,000 websites on the planet, and I had 4 of them. And one for business, no, 3 for business, 1 for spiritual matters. And then, let's see. So you went through the World Wide Web stuff, Yashanet, then around 2000 or so, I think it was Paltalk started. So now you had voice chat rooms, not just text. So we had voice. So I started a bunch of religious discussions on Paltalk. So there are some people who are on Facebook now who remember me from that. They were in those groups, which is really funny. I also got to interact with some Orthodox rabbis. They were really big on Paltalk for a while. They really hit that hard. There's Chabad groups and stuff that were out there, and it was kind of interesting. And from Paltalk to Facebook for the last 10 years, almost 10 years now on Facebook, yeah, since about 09. So I went to Facebook to check it out, this thing, in 09. And for the first few weeks, I was ready to just leave it, saying, I just don't know. This is nothing happening. And then I ran into this one guy. You probably know him. His name is Shem Boogie Sanjaya Singh. And met him, and that's it all. I was like, wow, you're exactly the type of person I want to talk with. And he he and I hit it off, and then we started the Facebook stuff, and I've just continued doing these things. So that's the history. Boring everyone, they all left. But I'll be posting stuff. So thank you very much for being here. We'll have some Manischewitz and leftover whatever. We had brisket. Thank you, Trader Joe's, for having kosher brisket in the new Trader Joe's that's right near me. It's amazing. They didn't have it 2 weeks ago, but they got it in for Passover. I'm hoping they get steaks in. I'm not a big meat eater, but once or twice a year I'll get a steak, if they have one. So we'll see. All right, Baruch Hashem, thank you, everyone. And look for more information and invite more people and friends to our group. Okay? Love you all. Bye.